The bells echoed, ringing through the city under the night sky. One chime after another. Isidore descended the stairs alone, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. The door flew open. Light flooded into the darkness. Vivian's figure appeared in the doorway, standing silently as if she had been waiting for a long time. Isidore's deep voice called out, "Vivian." Vivian whipped her head around, a flash of alarm in her eyes. She then broke into a brilliant smile, like a blooming flower. Baron Lahides. Isidore rubbed his sleepy eyes, his expression puzzled. "What's wrong? It's so late." Vivian paused for a moment. She lifted her head to look directly at Isidore. "About what happened at the imperial banquet. Did you hear?" Isidore replied calmly, "I heard. The crown prince proposed to you." Vivian's gaze flickered for a moment. "Yes, about that." She took a deep breath, her eyes becoming earnest and bright. "Can you help me find a trustworthy man?" Vivian held up a finger, her tone urgent. "Right? Preferably the son of a foreign noble. I have to get married immediately, or at least get engaged right away." Isidore's eyebrow twitched slightly. "A man?" Vivian clasped her hands to her chest. "Otherwise, I might really have to marry the crown prince. I just need to find someone to sign a 1-year contract marriage." Isidore let out a soft laugh, his hand casually brushing through his black hair. "So you're really planning to stage some contract marriage farce with another bastard?" He suddenly grabbed Vivian's wrist, pulling her toward him. Vivian's voice trembled slightly. "Why are you suddenly doing this?" Isidore's gaze was deep. "You said you'd be with me forever." Vivian blinked in confusion. "What?" Isidore abruptly pulled her into his arms with such force that she let out a cry of surprise. He pinned Vivian against the wall, one hand braced beside her ear, the other tightly gripping her wrist. "You said you wanted to marry me." Vivian's cheeks flushed as she stammered a rebuttal. "Emmy? When did I ever say something like that?" Vivian's mind was in chaos as she screamed in denial. A flicker of hurt crossed Isidore's blue eyes. "No, don't look at me with those hurt eyes. I must look terrible." Vivian's voice was firm. "I never said anything like that to you. Why is he suddenly acting like this?" Vivian's breath caught for a moment. "Why am I seeing an overlap between the him of now and that child? The person I promised my life to. When the time is right, I will come to see you again. Though we haven't been able to see each other for a long time. Until then, goodbye, my long-missed, precious friend, Rachel." Impossible. Baron Lahides. How could he be Rachel? Isidore's voice pulled her back to reality. "Answer me, Vivian." He suddenly tightened his arms, pulling her deeper into his embrace. Isidore interlaced their fingers, enveloping Vivian's hand in his palm. "If we get married, we'll have to hold hands like this. Rachel is a woman, and we have to kiss too. He's the villain of this world." Isidore leaned in close, his breath brushing against her ear. "Can you really do this kind of thing with another man?" Vivian's eyes wavered. "No." Vivian's cheeks flushed red. "I can't do that kind of thing with you either. My lifelong best friend is actually a man. Isn't this fraud?" 10 years ago, Vivian lay in bed, a damp towel on her forehead, her breathing ragged. Her face was flushed from a high fever. After the fever, I realized I had transmigrated. I had entered a novel I read in my past life, a book called The Crown Prince Who Loved a Songbird. Vivian shot up in bed. "I am screwed. I'm Vivian, the original novel's female protagonist. And the male lead is the crown prince, Alan. One might think it's lucky to transmigrate into a novel. An ordinary girl wins the love of the crown prince. But in this novel, after the terminally ill female protagonist dies, the male lead, Alan, is consumed by endless regret. It's a complete and utter tragedy. Damn it." Vivian curled up in pain. She pounded the bed fiercely. "I have a terminal illness, an incurable disease called mana overload syndrome. A huge amount of mana is generated in the body, gathers in the heart, and eventually causes it to explode, a terrifying disease. But the only glimmer of hope." Vivian stood before the mirror, her small body trembling slightly. "There is a way to escape this sad ending." Vivian picked up a quill and wrote a name on a piece of parchment. "Rachel. There is one person who can alleviate my terminal illness. She is the villain from the novel I transmigrated into, Rachel Edelwin. Rachel isn't a rival competing with me for the male lead. She's more like the ambitious final villain, solely focused on usurping the throne. And unlike me, who suffers from mana overload, Rachel has a special constitution that allows her to absorb surrounding mana for her own use. In the original story, Vivian refused Rachel's treatment in order to protect Alan. Vivian forcefully crossed out Alan's name. To hell with the original plot. A male lead who only regrets after I'm dead? To hell with him. I'm going to stick close to Rachel, live a long and healthy life, and while I'm at it, I can stop her from turning evil. Vivian couldn't help but laugh out loud. A perfect plan. She turned and rushed to the door. I'm coming. Wait for me. In front of the Edelwyn ducal estate, Vivian gazed at the magnificent manor. Servants were busy moving goods. To get close to Rachel, I at least have to make her aware of my existence. Vivian tiptoed, hiding between barrels and boxes. Rachel is the only daughter of the Duke Edelwyn's family, and I'm just a commoner. Vivian peeked out from behind a barrel. This means I can't just meet her whenever I want. That's why I snuck in here. That's why I prepared this survival plan to overturn the sad ending. As long as I have enough information, I'll have a chance to get close to Rachel. All right, it's time to make my move. Vivian took a deep breath and stepped out from her hiding place. With a brilliant smile on her face, Vivian waved to the busy servants. Hello, everyone. The servants stopped what they were doing, staring in astonishment at the girl who had suddenly appeared. Their reaction was as expected. Vivian cleared her throat. Let's introduce myself first. My name is Vivian. I'm Diaz Herson's daughter. We run the Vivi Bakery in the village. I'm 9 years old. Vivian continued. I heard you just moved in, so I came by to see. I pass by here every day. This estate is so huge, it really caught my eye. Vivian turned to a male servant. If you're curious about anything in the village, feel free to ask me. The male servant crossed his arms and replied coldly, I've lived here half my life. Undeterred, Vivian turned to another female servant. You should check out the general store in the village square. They sell a super effective skin lotion. She cupped her cheeks with her hands. It's said to make your skin incredibly soft. The maid's eyes lit up. Really? How much is it? A glint flashed in Vivian's eyes. Hooked. She gestured excitedly. 1 silver coin a bottle, and it's buy one, get one free right now. Also, there's the run by Uncle Pierre. The alcohol, there's especially good. A guard in uniform, arms crossed, chuckled. How would you know if the alcohol is good? Have you tried it? Vivian immediately shook her head. No, but there's an old man who drinks it every day. He always says, starting tomorrow, I'm quitting drinking. Then the next day, he's drinking again. The servants were stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. The guard laughed so hard he bent over. I'll have to go see that for myself. A smile played on Vivian's lips. Mission complete. A man who looked like a chef came forward. Child, do you know where to buy good quality cheese? I need to buy some tomorrow. Vivian puffed out her chest. Of course. I'm a know-it-all of this area. Just trust me. She patted her chest confidently. The chef smiled and nodded. All right then. I'll be counting on you. Vivian bowed. Well, I'll be going now. See you tomorrow. The servants waved goodbye enthusiastically. Be careful on your way. Stay safe. Vivian's lips curled into a smug smile. That's enough for today. She turned and left, her small figure receding into the distance. Too bad I didn't get to see Rachel, but it's okay. There's still plenty of time. Vivian's steps became lighter. Vivian suddenly whipped her head around. What? Isidore stood by the window, gazing at her quietly. Found her. Vivian's pupils contracted sharply. She saw him. Rachel. Vivian clasped her hands to her chest, her eyes shining with amazement. Wow, it's unbelievable. How could someone look like that? Unrealistically beautiful. And that cold expression, so mysterious. Vivian suddenly snapped out of it. This is no time to be dazed. I have to go say hello quickly. Rachel was looking quietly out the window. Rachel suddenly turned. HM? He had already gone inside. Vivian's waving hand froze in midair. For a first meeting, was I too enthusiastic? She gazed at the closed main door. Oh well, I can always get close to her later. At least I left an impression on her. Vivian's lips curved up slightly. Vivian put her hands on her hips, her eyes shining with confidence. Today's goal, accomplished. The next day, Vivian arrived as promised and went with a servant from the ducal estate to buy cheese. The cheese shop owner looked skeptical. A noble wants to eat my cheese? Would someone like you really eat this? Vivian leaned on the counter and retorted righteously. What do you mean? Why wouldn't you eat something so delicious? She successfully persuaded the stubborn Uncle Gerard to sign a contract with the shop. Mission complete. Sunlight filtered through the trees. The servant carried a bag of cheese, accompanied by Vivian. Thank you, child. My name is Vivian. The servant looked back at her. All right, Vivian. Thanks to you, we'll have cheese for dinner. Vivian gave a thumbs up. It's nothing. Neighbors should help each other out. Now it's your turn to help me. Vivian's gaze sharpened instantly, a calculating glint in her golden eyes. Now let's begin. The servant looked bewildered. Vivian suddenly bent over, clutching her stomach. She looked to be in terrible pain. The servant asked with concern, "What's wrong? Why so suddenly?" Vivian squeezed her eyes shut, her stomach growling. "We walked so far. I am hungry. Let's hurry home." The servant looked at her pained expression, struggling internally. "She helped me so much. I can't just pretend I don't see this. Especially since she's a hungry child." Vivian staggered forward. "Well, I'll be going then." The servant finally made up his mind and hurriedly called out to her, Vivian." Vivian clenched her fist. Excellent. The plan worked. Vivian lowered her head, looking aggrieved. "Yes, sir. Is something wrong?" The servant hesitantly reached out a hand. Wait a moment. Would you like to come in for a snack?" Vivian's head shot up, her eyes sparkling. "Oh, yes." She clasped her hands together, her face full of bliss. "Is it really okay?" Vivian sat in front of Cake, her cheeks slightly flushed. "Thank you." Vivian and the servants sat around a long table, enjoying the cake. The atmosphere was warm and harmonious. A maid suggested with a smile, "You're Vivian, right? Would you like me to show you the garden later? The scenery here is beautiful." With her mouth full of cake, Vivian mumbled in agreement. "Wow. Okay." Vivian looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is like a palace where a princess lives." A maid sitting at the other end of the table stated calmly, "A princess does indeed live here. The Ice Princess." "A princess?" Vivian forked a piece of cake. "I saw her on the third floor yesterday. She's the Duke's daughter, right? She's so beautiful. I wonder what kind of person she is." Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a halo of light. A young maid pushed the door open and stopped at the entrance. "More cake." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw Vivian, stunned. The maid's face was full of shock, her mouth slightly agape. Hey." The maid pointed at Vivian, her tone sharp. "What's that thing? Who let her in?" The servant who brought Vivian in quickly explained, "She's just a child from the neighborhood. She helped me out, so I brought her in for a snack." An older maid tried to smooth things over with a smile. "Sally, just try to get along with her." Sally sneered. You want me to play with a country bumpkin like that?" Vivian lowered her head without a word. "Who is she?" Rachel's only relative is her maternal grandfather, Duke Edelwin. Sally looked at Vivian with contempt. A maid whispered, "She's the nanny's daughter. A pretentious commoner. Just because her mom is favored, she really thinks she's a noble too." TCH. Sally shot up, her roar echoing through the dining room. "How dare you bring a street beggar into the ducal estate? She's filthy and disgusting." The older maid stood up to stop Sally. "Sally, that's too much to say to a child." Sally flung her hand away. "Who said I was friends with that dirty kid?" Sally was furious. "Get her out." A deep voice cut her off. "Why is it so noisy in here?" Couts walked slowly into the dining room, his eyes cold, followed by a butler. "That man is." All the servants instantly bowed their heads in terror. Your Grace," the Duke. Vivian shot to her feet, her chair scraping backward. It made a piercing sound. "Counts. Duke Edelwin." The name surfaced in Vivian's mind. Sally immediately pointed at Vivian, tattling to Counts. "Your Grace, that child came in without permission. How dare she set foot in the manor where you reside?" "Really?" Vivian frowned in disbelief. "No, if I can make a good impression on the Duke, I might get a chance to meet Rachel directly." Couts's gaze swept over everyone. "Who brought this child in?" The servant who had brought Vivian in, trembling all over, placed a hand on Vivian's shoulder. "It was me." He explained nervously, "She helped me buy the cheese. I didn't think it was right to just send her away, so I wanted to give her a snack before she left." Couts looked at Vivian. "She bought the cheese?" "Yes. She even helped negotiate the price." "A child negotiated the price?" Couts's gaze fell upon Vivian. "She looks like an ordinary child." Vivian lifted the hem of her skirt and bowed deeply. Vivian, daughter of Dias Herson, pays her respects to the esteemed Duke. She raised her head and mustered her courage to speak. "If I may, may I say something?" Couts looked down at her. "Speak." Vivian took a step forward and looked directly at Couts. "He said you are a gentleman who honors his promises and would never turn a blind eye to someone who has helped you. To drive away a benefactor would anger you. So he was following your will by repaying me." Couts narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing the child before him. She's trying to stop me from punishing that servant. If I kick her out and then punish James, it would make me seem dishonorable." Couts's gaze swept over the crowd. Finally, it landed on the butler. Owen. Owen bowed and acknowledged the order. Couts gave an order to the butler. "Give her enough food and compensation." Sally cried out in shock. "You're going to reward that beggar? You're not going to punish him?" Kaltz turned his head, his gaze like a knife, as she said, mistreating someone who has helped the Edelwins. That would damage my reputation. His voice was icy. Sally, do you think my decision is wrong? Sally trembled in fear. No, I believe it is a merciful judgment. Vivian bowed again, saying gratefully, thank you, Your Grace. I will surely repay today's kindness in the future. A cold smile touched Kaltz's lips. Is she planning to come here often from now on? Such a clever and cunning child. He turned to leave, his gaze sweeping over the still bowing Vivian. A clever child is very useful. Just right. I need a girl her age. Kaltz walked away side by side with Owen, their footsteps echoing in the hallway. The next day was sunny. Vivian was sweeping in front of the bakery. A white-haired young man pushed the door open. Vivi, she called softly. Vivian looked up at the sound. Diaz, her son, looked gently at his daughter. You're up early lately. What's up with my little sleeping princess? Vivian looked down and swept, answering vaguely, because I have to go to the villa later. If Dad finds out I've been sneaking over there. A memory surfaced. Her father had warned her sternly. You are absolutely forbidden from going near that villa. Do you understand? She shook her head violently. I absolutely cannot let him find out. He'll nag me just like last time, until my ears are about to fall off. Why is that place off limits? Vivian forced a smile. Yep, I decided to be a diligent, good girl from now on. Diaz Herson raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Well, that's good news for me. He suddenly lifted the bakery's sign, on which was carved Vivi Bakery. Vivian screamed in terror, Dad. Vivian rushed forward anxiously. Dad, are you okay? I told you to be careful when hanging the sign. She took her father's arm. Let me see your face. Are you hurt? Diaz Herson took off his glasses, a red mark on his face. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. The glasses didn't break. He doesn't even need to wear glasses. His eyesight is perfect. Wearing them is just a hindrance. Although it's a bit harsh to say this about my own dad, his baking skills are truly indescribable. Vivian looked at the burnt bread, its color grotesquely strange. What on earth did he put in it to make it turn out like this? Even so, people still came to the shop. Only because two ladies walked past the bakery. One of them greeted with a smile. Vivian, helping your dad again today? The other lady chimed in. What a good child. Peter should really learn from you. Vivian greeted them politely. Diaz Herson came out, his smile as bright as the morning sun. Good morning, Lauren, Karen. The two ladies immediately flushed. Diaz, you look especially dazzling today. Don't say that. Vivian sighed internally. It's all thanks to Dad's face. Vivian looked down, displeased. Such a waste. If he just didn't wear glasses, sales would definitely be better. The two ladies smiled and said their goodbyes. Well, we'll be going now. Come visit us when you have time, Vivian. Vivian waved goodbye. Okay, goodbye. Diaz Herson took Vivian's hand. Vivi, let's get ready to open the shop for customers. He looked up and smiled brightly. Okay. The crisp sound of horse hooves approached from a distance. A magnificent carriage stopped in front of the shop. The coachman pulled the reins tight. Diaz Herson looked on, puzzled. Why is a carriage stopping in front of our shop? Vivian's gaze was drawn to the carriage door. She gasped. That crest. The silver family crest glinted coldly in the sunlight. It's the Edelwin family. Vivian's heart sank. Why would someone from the Edelwin family come here? The carriage door slowly opened, and a man in formal attire stepped out. And that person was. Owen stepped down from the carriage. He was the very butler who had been with the Duke yesterday. Owen bowed. Hello, Miss Vivian. Vivian looked up at him. Oh, hello, Mr. Butler. Why would he suddenly come here? Diaz's hand rested lightly on Vivian's shoulder. He leaned down. Vivian, Diaz is Mayo Frozy. How does the butler of the Duke Edelwin's house know you? Vivian stiffened, a cold sweat instantly drenching her back. She abruptly broke free from Diaz's hand and jumped back, creating some distance. Vivian forced a stiff smile. Mr. Butler, what brings you here? She clasped her hands to her chest. Are you here to buy bread? Owen had a gentle smile on his face. I've come for another matter. Vivian looked up at him. Another matter? Owen turned to face Diaz and bowed slightly. Allow me to introduce myself. He placed a hand on his chest. I'm the butler of the Edelwin ducal house. My name is Owen. Owen turned to Diaz. You must be Mr. Diaz, her son, Vivian's father? Diaz replied, a bit awkwardly, yes, that's right, but Owen's gaze went past him and landed on Vivian. Then I'll be direct. His Grace the Duke wishes for Vivian to become the young lady's playmate. Vivian's pupils contracted, her small mouth falling open. Her mind went blank. What? A playmate? Vivian clasped her hands tightly, her eyes shining with disbelief. This is amazing. Owen continued to explain. After seeing Miss Vivian yesterday, His Grace the Duke was full of praise for her potential. Diaz crossed his arms, his gaze sharpening. The Duke saw Vivian yesterday? Vivian trembled behind him. That guy's glare is practically murderous. Owen continued, Miss Vivian will attend classes and study together with our young lady. If there is anything she needs, the Edwin family will provide our full support. Vivian threw herself into her father's arms, hugging him tightly. Dad, she peeked open one eye. These conditions seem pretty good. Diaz's tone was calm. I am grateful for your offer, but I must refuse. Vivian, still hugging her father's arm, looked up in shock. What? Diaz pushed up his glasses, a cold glint flashing off the lenses. There are still many things I have yet to teach her. He looked down at his daughter. She is far from qualified to be the young lady's playmate. Vivian shook her head violently. No way. Do you know what a great opportunity this is? She grabbed Diaz's sleeve and pulled hard. Dad, Vivian pleaded, looking up, let's talk. Diaz pulled Vivian and walked quickly back inside. He stopped and turned to face his daughter. Vivian, why did you go there? Vivian lowered her eyes. She had hoped to get away with being cute, but seemed that wouldn't work. Vivian explained in a low voice, I was just curious about what the estate looked like. I was just going to take a peek from the outside, but I accidentally ran into the Duke. Gia Sigid, I'll talk to the butler. We'll agree not to go to the ducal estate anymore, understand? Vivian gripped his hand tightly. Absolutely not. I have to go there. Diaz was silent, gazing at his daughter. Why do you have to go? I can't tell him about Rachel's constitution, nor can I mention the original story. In that case, Vivian looked up, her eyes shining with hope. I want to cure my illness. Gia's pupils contracted sharply. He cupped Vivian's face with trembling hands. Why are you suddenly saying this? Have you been feeling unwell lately? Are you hiding something from me? Vivian quickly shook her head. No, it's not like that. I'm fine, Dad. Calm down. Vivian's eyes were pleading. I just want to get better quickly so I can be with you for a long time. I don't want you to worry anymore. Vivian crouched down to be at eye level with Diaz. The Duke must know famous doctors and mages in the capital. If we go and beg him, do you think he'd be willing to help? Diaz looked down, his expression hidden behind his glasses. He suddenly stood up. Diaz finally spoke. All right, let's go and ask the Duke. He pulled Vivian into a tight embrace. Sunlight streamed through the flowers, gently enveloping the father and daughter. Vivian's cheek rested on her father's shoulder as she broke into a brilliant smile. That's great. Thank you, Dad. The next day, sunlight shone on the magnificent ducal estate. A crystal-clear greenhouse sparkled under the sun. The butler poured tea for Vivian. Welcome, Miss Vivian. The butler bowed. I will go and fetch the young lady. Please wait a moment. Vivian nodded obediently. Okay, Mr. Butler, I'm finally going to meet Rachel. Since this is a formal meeting. Vivian looked down at her skirt, then patted her cheeks firmly with both hands. I have to be at my best. Take a deep breath. Compose your expression. Her palms were slightly sweaty, as if she were awaiting judgment. Footsteps approached from a distance. A figure appeared at the greenhouse entrance. Vivian looked up sharply. She looked over expectantly. Rachel. Suddenly, Sally let out a threatening roar. How'd you get in here again? Vivian stared at the scene in astonishment. What? Is that Sally? A sly smile appeared on Vivian's face. I'm here to be the young lady's playmate. She leaned forward from her chair, waving with a brilliant smile. I'll be in your care from now on. Sally stood at the entrance, her face full of disdain. Huh, you? Sally stormed in, pointing a finger at Vivian. Who the hell are you? Who let someone like you in without my mother's permission? Vivian tilted her head with feigned innocence. Does the Duke also need your mother's permission? What? A cold smile touched Vivian's lips, her eyes instantly sharpening. Why don't you go tell your mother that the Duke brought a beggar from the market to be the young lady's friend? Sally's face turned beet red, her teeth grinding audibly. You little... Sally spun around and stormed off. You just wait. Vivian made a face at her retreating back. Serves you right. A long time seemed to have passed. Vivian sat alone in the empty courtyard. Rachel still hasn't come. I hope she arrives soon. Vivian's gaze gradually firmed, a hint of determination igniting in her eyes. Vivian suddenly trembled all over. She painfully clutched her chest, staggering to lean against the stone bench. The symptoms of mana overload flared up again. The mana rampaged through her body. Her heart felt like it was about to explode. Vivian curled up, gasping for breath. No, I can't collapse here. even if it's not some contagious disease. Vivian's fingers clenched tightly, her knuckles turning white. They would never want a sickly child to be the young lady's playmate. Vivian staggered to her feet. I have to leave quickly. She stumbled towards the deeper part of the greenhouse. I have to find a place to hide and wait until I feel a little better. Vivian's foot slipped and her body lurched forward, bumping open a door. She fell into a dim room, landing heavily in someone's arms. Vivian looked up in terror, meeting a pair of cold blue eyes. She hurriedly started to say, "I'm sore." Rachel looked at her expressionlessly, not a ripple in her gaze. She fell into a warm embrace. A familiar scent enveloped her. "Rachel." Vivian leaned down, looking at the girl with a radiant smile. "Hello, young lady." She extended her hand. "From today on, I'm your playmate." Rachel suddenly turned and walked away without looking back, leaving Vivian frozen on the spot with her hand outstretched. Vivian watched Rachel's back as she walked to a table and sat down without a word. So cold. It's really so cold. Is the villainess hating the protagonist an unavoidable fate? Vivian sat up abruptly. "Wait, come to think of it, my heart was hurting so much just now." She clasped her hands over her chest. The pain was gone. Usually, even after the sharp pain passes, a dull ache remains. Vivian lay on the bed. Her body was curled up, but it was just a brief contact with Rachel, and the pain disappeared so quickly. "It's like I've won the lottery." Vivian picked up the teapot and enthusiastically poured tea for Rachel, her movements as swift as the wind. "I must become Rachel's best friend." Vivian clasped her hands, confessing with a bright smile, "I like you, young lady. From now on, I will definitely make you happy." Rachel slammed the book in her hand shut. "You." She turned her back to Vivian, her voice icy. "Never come back again." The smile on Vivian's face instantly froze, like a shattered mirror. "What?" Vivian stood frozen, watching Rachel turn and leave. She reached out, tears welling up. "Young lady, my dream of living a long and healthy life cannot end here." A fire ignited in Vivian's eyes. Her will was incredibly firm. "If you chop a tree 10 times and it doesn't fall, then chop an 11th time." Vivian raised an axe high, an unyielding light shining in her eyes. "Hold on." A few days later, on the day of the tea party with Rachel, Vivian rested her chin on her hands, waiting patiently. "I really want to see her soon. I've been waiting for 30 minutes, but Miss Rachel hasn't arrived." Rachel's figure appeared, her expression cold. Vivian's smile froze. "No way. Am I being stood up?" The main doors slowly opened, and light poured in. A light shone in Vivian's eyes. "She's here." She lifted her skirt and curtsied elegantly. "Hello, young lady." Before she could finish, a figure suddenly blocked her way. It was Sally. Sally crossed her arms, a contemptuous smile on her lips. She lifted her skirt, mimicking Vivian's gesture. "Well, hello there, young lady." Just as expected of an ill-mannered country bumpkin. "You have no sense at all." Sally closed in on Vivian. "Do you know why the young lady hasn't come yet?" Vivian's pupils constricted slightly. "What?" Sally's voice was bone-chillingly cold. "The young lady said that someone as ill-mannered as you isn't worthy of having tea with her." Sally's voice was sharp. "She doesn't want to play with someone as lowly as you." She waved her hand impatiently. "You should have had the sense to go home long ago. A clueless brat like you is the most annoying." Vivian lowered her eyes, her voice as light as a feather. "Is that so?" She slowly raised her head, a brilliant smile blooming on her face. "Then may I ask the young lady myself?" Sally took a startled step back. "What did you say?" Vivian's smile didn't falter. "If the young lady really said that, then of course I should go home. But what if you're lying?" She leaned close to Sally's ear, her breath like an orchid. "Wouldn't that make me an unreasonable person who defied the Duke's orders and went home without permission?" Sally's face flushed red as she argued loudly. "I'm not lying." Vivian straightened up, her smile still sweet. "Is that so? Then let's go confirm it ourselves." "Excuse me." Sally roared, "Hey." Vivian ran without looking back, her pink hair flying behind her. Sally chased after her. "That brat! I told you to stop." Vivian rushed into the house. "I can't back down just like this." She dashed up the stairs. "I must see Rachel today." Vivian stopped. At the top of the stairs, a black-haired girl stood quietly. Sally peeked out from behind a door, panting as she pointed at Vivian. "Young lady," she tattled loudly. "I told her to go home, but she insisted on seeing you." Rachel sat upright, her gaze cold. "What are you here for?" Sally crossed her arms, looking smugly at Vivian. "Honestly, she thinks I'll back down now, but I have a plan of my own." Vivian clasped her hands together, looking directly at Rachel. Actually, I know the young lady thinks our tea party is boring, so I prepared something else that's fun. Vivian's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Why don't we go for a walk in town? Sally immediately stood in front of Rachel. How could the young lady go to such a dirty place? She hates leaving the manor the most, right, young lady? Rachel was silent, her eyes hesitant. Vivian quietly watched Rachel. Rachel finally spoke, her voice faint. No, Rachel actually wants to see the outside of the manor too, right? I've read the original novel, so I know. Rachel is the child of the late crown prince, the man who died bearing the charge of treason. And Miss Isella is the duke's daughter. On the surface, the emperor cannot act against Isella's illegitimate daughter, Rachel. But everyone in the empire knows full well that this by no means signifies forgiveness. Thus, Rachel has lived to this day, desperately avoiding the world's gaze. She never leaves the manor, hiding her own existence. As if dead, just to make the world forget me. Those suppressed emotions will eventually become the seeds of rebellion. But there is no emperor here. No one knows Rachel. At least in this small town, she doesn't have to hide anymore. Vivian tilted her head up and extended her hand to Rachel. Young lady, would you be willing to go to town with me? Rachel's lips trembled slightly. Margaret turned to leave. That would be too difficult. Vivian whipped her head around, her gaze drawn to Margaret's figure. Sally rushed towards Margaret. Mother. Vivian's pupils contracted. That's Sally's mother. Margaret walked down the stairs. The young lady, she placed a hand on Rachel's shoulder, has other arrangements today. Margaret Keyes, Rachel's nanny. Vivian looked up, her gaze sharpening. Whether you're trying to protect her or not, are you not even going to listen to Rachel's own opinion? Vivian raised her index finger. But we still have time for tea, don't we? Can't we just make a quick trip before that and come back? Margaret rested her chin on one hand. I said it would be difficult to go out today. Are my words that hard to understand? Vivian clasped her hands, her eyes twinkling. Then, it should be fine if I get the Duke's permission, right? Margaret's face twisted in a flash, burning with anger. Her voice was bone-chillingly cold. It seems you still don't understand. I am fully responsible for the young lady's education. My will is the Duke's will. Vivian whispered, I see. She slowly rose. Then, Kaltz's figure appeared in the hall. His voice was calm. When have I ever forbidden that child from going out? Margaret turned in terror. Your Grace, the Duke. Cold sweat dripped down Margaret's face. I was just worried about the young lady. Kaltz's gaze was stern. If you're truly worried, just send more guards. He walked down the steps, lights spreading out behind him as if a deity had descended. Kaltz's voice echoed in the hall. If you want to go, then go, Rachel. Both Vivian and Rachel looked up. His figure reflected in their eyes. Kaltz added, of course, you must be back before sunset. Margaret argued urgently, but, Your Grace, the young lady has her etiquette lessons soon. Kaltz turned his head. Can't she have it tomorrow? Owen, prepare the carriage. Owen bowed. As you command, Your Grace. Vivian clasped her hands, her eyes shining with excitement. Is this the taste of power? A cold smile touched the corner of Vivian's mouth. It seems Sally and the nanny both want to drive me away. Since that's the case, I might as well walk the tightrope. She lifted her skirt and rushed down the stairs. Your Grace. Vivian bowed deeply. I wanted to greet you, but you seemed busy, so I didn't dare to disturb you. Kaltz's voice was calm. I believe we've already greeted each other. Vivian looked up, smiling brightly. Yes. Vivian continued, but this is my first time greeting you as the young lady's playmate. My father always taught me that when I go to a friend's house, I should first introduce myself and then greet them politely. Kaltz was expressionless. He listened quietly. Vivian clasped her hands. So, I was wondering, Your Grace, if I could have dinner with you tonight? The air instantly froze. A chill spread. Margaret panicked. She grabbed Vivian's shoulder. I knew it. I shouldn't have brought an ill-mannered commoner child here. Your Grace, this child. Kaltz burst out laughing, the sound echoing in the hall. Margaret and Vivian stood frozen, staring at him in astonishment. Kaltz smiled heartily. Very well. There's no reason not to entertain my granddaughter's friend. He gave an order. Owen, prepare a banquet. Vivian cheered inwardly. I succeeded. Dinner and Rachel's first outing were both a success. At least, that's what I thought. Rachel huddled in her chair, her voice muffled. I'm not going. Vivian shot to her feet. What? Why don't you want to go? Rachel kept her head down. I just don't want to go. Vivian circled her, pressing urgently. There must be a reason. Tell me. I'll solve it for you. Rachel closed her eyes. It's noisy and chaotic there. I don't like it. She clenched her skirt tightly, her knuckles turning white. I really hate crowded places. Hushed. She's afraid of other people's stares. Countless eyes peeking from the darkness. Countless voices echoing in her ears. She's the traitor's child. She's the traitor's child. She's the traitor's child. She's afraid people will recognize her. Afraid of those whispers. Vivian's eyes were resolute, the corners of her mouth lifting into a confident arc. I can solve this problem. It's actually just like a forest path. What? You want us to climb up there? Vivian looked at a group of tired knights. Yes. Why does everyone look so weak? She tilted her head. Uncles, did you only eat a little bread today? Vivian raised her hands high. Then from now on, I'll tell His Grace the Duke to give you uncles lots and lots of bread. The knights looked at each other in panic. To His Grace the Duke. Count sat behind his desk, resting his chin on one hand. So, he looked down at the knights before him. You're saying you want more bread because you're tired? The knights of the ducal house are so undisciplined. Kaltz's blue eyes glinted coldly in the shadows as he clasped his hands, tapping his fingertips. The knights screamed in terror. No, please don't. One knight raised his arm and shouted, All right, let's go, let's go. Lead the way quickly. Rachel looked up. Vivian stood under a large tree on the hilltop, waving her arms excitedly. Young lady, this is it. She pointed at the scenery below. From under this tree, you can see the whole village. Vivian suddenly grabbed Rachel's hand. Look. Rachel looked down, her blue eyes reflecting Vivian's image. That's the village. Vivian spread her arms, presenting it like a treasure. Tajda. Rachel looked down at the view below. Sunlight bathed the entire village. She held her breath. I've really left the manor. Vivian flopped onto her back on the grass, spreading her arms with a cheer. Rachel looked at her. What are you doing now? Vivian turned her head to Rachel with a grin. You should try it too, young lady. Before Rachel could react, Vivian suddenly fell backward, her body rolling down the grassy slope. The knights were horrified. Rachel stood frozen. Vivian rolled all the way down the hill, letting out a series of joyful squeals. The knights chased after her frantically. Hey, child! Vivian stopped at the bottom of the slope. She reached out her hand, and another hand gently rested on it. Vivian lay among the flowers and grass, her face smudged with dirt and green leaves. She closed her eyes and laughed out loud. That was so fun. Rachel stood on the slope, watching her quietly. A knight extended his hand. Child, are you all right? What a strange child. The children I met in the capital were, without exception, like little adults. They read quietly and behaved with elegant propriety. They never did things like that. Rachel shook her head lightly, her hand on her forehead. In front of her grandfather, she was always so well-behaved and sensible. But now, she's like a wild horse that has broken free, running about recklessly, not knowing right from wrong. Vivian grinned widely. A little toy pony, hee-hee, from beside her. Or perhaps like a child who knows nothing at all. Young lady. Rachel looked exasperated, while Vivian beamed. She really is a strange child. Vivian moved closer to Rachel, an innocent smile on her face. You're dirty. She gently patted her own skirt. Just pat it like this, and it'll be fine. But. Rachel looked at her expressionlessly, a hint of disdain in her eyes. Vivian took Rachel's hand. You try it too, young lady. It's a rare chance to be out. The grass is soft. It's really fun. Rachel shook her hand off. That's enough. You can have fun by yourself. Vivian's cheeks were slightly flushed, a green leaf still stuck in her hair. It was actually quite fun. A breeze blew across the hill, sweeping up golden motes of light. The town in the valley below was bathed in the sunset, serene and warm. Vivian pointed down the hill with excitement. Let me introduce it to you. That red roof is the fruit shop. In front of it is the general store. The green roof is the bookstore, and next to it is the restaurant. The food there is unbelievably delicious. And Vivian's eyes sparkled, as if she had discovered the world's most precious treasure. Her whole being seemed to glow. She's just a commoner at best. Why is this child so dazzling? Vivian's voice pulled Rachel back to reality. Young lady. Rachel flinched slightly. Yes, Vivian was bathed in the glow of the setting sun. She opened her arms. Next time, let's go into the village together. Okay. Rachel stared at her back, a pang in her heart. Freedom. Vivian laughed heartily, surrounded by villagers. The sun shone on her bright face. Unlike me, this child is always so cheerful and confident. She possesses a freedom I've never had. Rachel fell into a dark thicket of thorns, tightly bound by invisible shackles. Perhaps that's why this insignificant child before me feels like the master of this small world. Vivian exclaimed in awe. Wow. Young lady, look over there. The sun is setting. So, I'm a little jealous. Just a little bit. Rachel gazed at that light of freedom, the longing in her eyes almost overflowing. I want it. Night enveloped the forest. The sound of hooves shattered the silence. The carriage sped along under the moonlight. Vivian broke the silence in the carriage. How is it, young lady? Touring the village like this wasn't so bad, was it? Rachel was silent, her hands clenched tightly. She didn't say a word. Vivian sighed softly, as expected of a prickly young lady. I specifically chose a place with no people. Did she not like it? Well, it's not like I expected her to praise me. A hand gently reached for her head and patted it softly. Rachel looked up abruptly. Vivian looked up, confused. Is she telling me to follow her? Vivian's fingers gently plucked a leaf from her hair, her movements delicate. Vivian jolted, her eyes wide. What is this? Two knights looked at Vivian in the mirror, chuckling softly. So, that's why the uncles were teasing you earlier. You were wearing a pin. Vivian stared blankly at her reflection. Would I put that on? How embarrassing. Vivian's cheeks turned bright red. She clenched her fists and shook them violently in front of her. Arg, why didn't you tell me sooner? You knew all along. A faint smile touched Rachel's lips. She turned her head, her voice calm. You should be grateful I told you before you saw grandfather. Vivian was stunned. Did Rachel just smile? She looked at Rachel's silhouette against the window. No, I must have seen it wrong. The ice-cold Rachel. That would never smile at me. Vivian sighed softly. Anyway, once we get back to the villa, the Duke's dinner will be waiting. Vivian trembled. I'm suddenly so nervous. It's too late to run away now. The carriage slowly approached the brightly lit ducal mansion. The wheels crunched over the gravel path. The main gate slowly opened. The Duke sat at the head of the long table. The atmosphere was as heavy as ice. The clinking of cutlery was the only sound. A deathly silence hung over the dining table. Vivian looked down at her plate. In the original novel, Rachel and the Duke's relationship was already bad. She lightly bit her fork. I thought they only had a falling out after she turned to the dark side. Turns out it's been this bad since she was a child. I feel like I'm going to get indigestion. Vivian poked her head out of the carriage and waved at the guard. Hello, are you here to visit my young lady? At this moment, I'm probably closest to the villa's guards. Vivian closed her eyes, her cheeks slightly red. I can't help it. I have to say something. She mustered her courage and spoke. Thanks to you, your grace, we had a pleasant trip to the village today. Couts didn't look up. Really? Where did you go? Vivian continued to explain. Since it was our first time and we were short on time, we just went to the small hill behind the manor. From the top, you can see the entire village. Couts nodded. That's the best way to tour the village in a short time. Not bad. Vivian clasped her hands, smiling brightly. After all, we couldn't keep your grace waiting at the dinner table for too long. Her tone suddenly shifted, becoming excited. But your granddaughter went out for the first time in a long while. Shouldn't you ask her if she had fun? Vivian looked at Couts expectantly. Your grace, let's all go to the village together next time. Couts put down his knife and fork. If there's time. The light clink of cutlery against the plate broke the brief conversation. Vivian lowered her head in distress. This silence is suffocating. Vivian looked at Rachel's tense back. For the sake of Rachel's emotional well-being, it's better if they are closer. I'll help her get along with her only family, her grandfather. It might also dispel her gloominess. Vivian's eyes were determined. To do that, I must first find out the reason for their distant relationship. She put a piece of sausage into her mouth and chewed thoughtfully. Owen rushed forward in a panic. Your Grace, the Duke. Suddenly, Couts shot to his feet, the chair scraping backward with a jarring sound. Couts glared at Owen, barging in without even knocking. What is it? Owen froze. My apologies, Your Grace. It's just. He turned to the side, sweat trickling down his cheek. The Imperial Palace has sent an inspector. Couts's pupil shrank. An inspector? Night fell. The sign of Vivian's bakery flickered in the moonlight. 3 figures in uniform walked up the steps. They pushed open a shop door. An inspector in a red uniform walked into the shop. Sorry, we're closed for the day. Diaz turned at the sound. His face was filled with shock. The inspector's voice was cold. Are you Diaz Herson? Vivian Herson's father? That wording. They're from the Imperial Knights. Impossible. Diaz's eyes sharpened. Could they have found out Vivian's true identity? The inspector took a step closer, his voice leaving no room for doubt. I asked if you're Diaz Herson. Diaz was silent for a moment, then lowered his eyes. What are you doing here? He put his hands behind his back, tightly gripping a small knife. The blade glinted coldly in the light. The inspector introduced himself. I am Curtis Rohan of the Imperial Knights. I like to see her. Is she home? Diaz's eyes were cold. Why is the Imperial Palace looking for my daughter? The inspector's tone was flat. I heard your daughter is Miss Edelwin's playmate. The inspector continued. I have a few things I'd like to ask you. Diaz let out a sigh of relief. Good. It seems their target isn't Vivian, but he still couldn't let his guard down. I must be careful. I absolutely cannot let them realize her identity. He quietly put down the knife in his hand. Thankfully, Vivian isn't home right now. Diaz spread his hands, his tone calm. Sorry, Vivian isn't home right now. Vivian pushed open the door, waving with a bright smile. I'm home. Diaz whipped his head around, his glasses sliding down his nose. Oh no. Vivian froze at the door. What's going on? What happened here? Her golden eyes swept over the group of tall, burly men in the room. They've surrounded Dad. Diaz's body went rigid. Vivian, he covered his mouth in despair. The knights instantly drew their swords, the blades pointing straight at Diaz. The atmosphere grew tense. The inspector turned to Vivian. Are you Vivian? Vivian looked at the inspector. He was smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes. Dad said to be careful of people like this. She hugged her books and answered calmly, Yes, I am. The inspector's voice was loud. We are the Imperial Knights, here on His Majesty's orders. Vivian looked up sharply, her gaze focusing on the insignia on the inspector's shoulder. Wait, that insignia. Dad showed it to me before. A memory flashed back. Her father had pointed to a design on a piece of parchment, identical to the insignia before her. Her father's voice echoed in Vivian's mind. If you see people wearing this insignia, you must stay as far away from them as possible. A young Vivian looked up, confused. Why? Diaz held her, his tone gentle but incredibly serious. Although there are good nobles, bad nobles will punish you for no reason. And the closer they are to the Emperor, the heavier the punishment. Diaz gently kissed her forehead, his voice full of affection. Do you remember? In the villa, a servant hurriedly reported, the inspector from the Imperial Palace has arrived. Vivian looked at Kaltz. He looked so tense just now. These people are here to monitor Rachel. They want to dig up information on her. The inspector took a step forward, looking down at Vivian. I have something I want to ask you. The inspector suggested, shall we go outside talk? Diaz stood in front of Vivian, his tone icy. Say it here. He shielded Vivian behind him. Vivian looked up, startled. Dad? The inspector's face darkened. Honestly, the inspector looked sideways. Do you really think an Imperial Knight like me would kidnap a child? Diaz gently stroked Vivian's hair. Sir, you seem to be single, but this is how parents with daughters feel. Please try to understand. The inspector's voice suddenly rang out. Hey, as a knight loyal to His Majesty, my word is the Emperor's command. He roughly pushed Diaz aside. The inspector's tone was grim. Defying me is treason. Vivian bit her lip. What should I do? If they fight? No, Dad will definitely lose. Dad has muscles, but he can't fight at all. It's just for show. Looks like it's up to me to protect Dad. Vivian stood tall. What is it? What do you want to talk about? The inspector looked down at her. I heard you're the young lady's playmate. I want to ask you some things about her. Just as I thought. As Rachel's friend, I absolutely cannot give information to the Emperor's side. Vivian's eyes were sharp. Judging by the looks of these two, they're definitely not married. A cold smile touched Vivian's lips. I'm going to show them just how tiring it is to talk to a 9-year-old. Vivian tilted her head up. Why? If you're curious about the young lady, why are you asking me? Why don't you just go and ask her yourselves? The inspector and the knight looked at each other and fell silent. This is why. The inspector and the knight broke out in a cold sweat. Oh well. The knight awkwardly held up a finger. It's like this. His Majesty and the young lady's relationship isn't very good, so it would be a bit awkward to ask her directly. That's why we came to ask you. Vivian's pupils quaked. The young lady and His Majesty's relationship isn't good? Why? The knight stammered when asked. Oh well, the reason their relationship isn't good is... The knight quickly backtracked. Never mind. Forget I said anything. His Majesty is a benevolent ruler. He cares for all his subjects. He was just curious if the young lady is well, having come from so far away. Oh, that sounds plausible enough. Vivian thought. If that's the case, it's time to launch a sophistry attack. Vivian tilted her head. Huh, then why aren't you curious about me? The knight looked bewildered. Vivian clung tightly to her father's sleeve. My dad and I are the Emperor's subjects too. Isn't he curious about how we're doing in this village? The knight quickly forced a smile. Of course he's curious. Are you doing well here? And are you getting along with the young lady? Trying to steer the conversation back to Rachel, are we? Vivian's eyes sharpened. This guy isn't easy to deal with. Time to use my final move, pestering and boasting. Vivian chattered on. I'm doing great. I even beat the neighbor's kid and became the king of the alley. A few days ago, I even went to explore the haunted house in the forest. Thought to build up my courage. The inspector hastily interrupted. Wait, did the young lady go to the haunted house with you? Vivian waved her hand with an innocent look. No, the young lady hadn't come to our village yet. The inspector sighed. Then why are you telling me all this now? The inspector and the knight held their heads in frustration. Vivian's eyes welled up with tears. But you were the ones who asked me if I was doing well. She puffed out her cheeks. Oomph. Then I won't say anything. The inspector immediately panicked. No, that's not what I meant. I just want to know how you're getting along with the young lady. Have you seen her use magic? Vivian pulled down her eyelid with her finger and made a face. Finally getting to the point, huh? The first emperor of the Hilderun Empire was a great magician. Therefore, most of his descendants are born with astonishing magical power. Barring any accidents, the heir with the strongest magical power inherits the throne. However, descendants who rebel against this system occasionally appear. One of them was the former prince, Rachel's father. Prince Alan, a powerful magician, coveted the throne. He was eventually executed for conspiring to commit treason. Since then, the emperor has had Rachel under constant surveillance. He fears that Rachel, who inherited the imperial bloodline, will start a rebellion just like her father. Vivian tapped her cheek. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. The inspector's face turned red. Think carefully before you answer. A hand gently pressed on the inspector's shoulder, stopping him. That's enough. Diaz stood in front of Vivian, his voice cold. You won't get the answers you want from a 9-year-old child. Vivian chegou, gripid, Giasleevi. He shielded her behind him. The inspector turned to leave, muttering, what a waste of time. He glanced back. Hey, you'd better keep your mouth shut about today. The inspector suddenly stopped. Oh, right. He abruptly leaned close to Diaz's face, his eyes sharp. For some reason, you look very familiar. Have we met somewhere before? Diaz was expressionless. I don't know. The inspector's lips curled into a smile. I think this is the first time I've seen you. I must be mistaken. Vivian looked up at Diaz. Strange. Dad's face isn't exactly common. Diaz took Vivian's hand. Let's go. The inspectors turned and left. Diaz picked Vivian up. Let's not go to the ducal manor for a while. Vivian replied in a low voice. Amicia. The butler also said it's best if I don't visit for a while. He said they have guests to entertain. That's what he said, but he probably suspects me. The moment I became Rachel's playmate, people from the palace showed up. I worked so hard to become her friend. Vivian held her head in her hands and burst into tears. Diaz looked at her, confused. Vivi, isn't there a way to dispel their suspicions? A spark lit up in Vivian's eyes. I've got it. Diaz knelt on the floor, looking at Vivian, who was lying on the ground. Vivi, dinner. Vivian shot up and ran out of the room without looking back, leaving the bewildered man behind. Vivian ran up the stairs. If I just show him that thing, I can definitely clear the Duke's suspicions. 1 week later, sunlight cast dappled tree shadows through the window. Rachel stood by the window. So annoying. I knew you were the same. Rachel recalled the past. Those children were all just like you. A brown-haired girl fidgeted nervously. Sorry, I have new younger siblings now, so I probably can't come over to play. Rachel received letter after letter, filled with various excuses for not being able to come. I'm not feeling well. I can't make it. A distant relative is visiting. I can't make our appointment. At first, I believed them. I even wrote back. Margaret held Rachel's hand. Young lady, the truth is, no one will ever come, because you are the child of a traitor. Margaret's voice echoed in Rachel's ears. They're afraid the Emperor will punish anyone who gets close to you. Poor young lady. But don't worry. Sally and I will always be by your side. It wasn't until much later that I realized it was all meaningless. From that day on, I decided not to expect anything from anyone. Rachel closed the book in her hands until Vivian appeared. She smiled and said, I like you, young lady. Even though she said that, Rachel stood alone by the window. I know you'll leave me soon, so I should be fine. Rachel suddenly slammed the book onto the floor. Why am I so irritated? Rachel turned abruptly. Footsteps approached from a distance. Maybe. Rachel's heart pounded. She clenched her fists tightly. Vivian. Rachel whipped her head around. Did Vivian come to see me? A soft call came from outside the door. Young lady. Sally walked in. Are you reading? Rachel's gaze instantly turned icy. Sally clasped her hands. Young lady, it's not time for your studies yet. Can't you take a break? She gave a bright smile. I want to play with dolls. Or how about we play house? Rachel didn't say a word and pulled a book from the shelf. What's going on? Is she not even going to look at me now? Sally's cheeks flushed and she bit her lip. She's always been quiet, but it's never been this bad. Rachel's change is all because of that country bumpkin. So annoying. Sally grabbed Rachel's arm. That noisy country bumpkin isn't coming anymore. You're happy too, right, young lady? With her around, I couldn't even read to you properly. She just acted all friendly and kind on her own. I knew it. People like her run away quickly. But don't worry, young lady. I'll always be by your side. Rachel spoke coldly. Get out. Sally's smile froze on her face. What? Rachel's voice was devoid of any warmth. I said get out. You're too noisy. Panicked, Sally turned and ran. Her footsteps faded away in the courtyard. Sally trembled all over. She rushed out of the courtyard and hid behind the maze-like bushes. She violently kicked over a nearby flower pot. The pot shattered, sending soil and petals flying. It's all because of that girl. Her face was flushed with anger, and she ground her teeth. How dare a country bumpkin seduce my husband, my future husband? A memory surfaced. Margaret was combing a young Sally's hair. She whispered, the young master is only dressing as a girl now due to the circumstances. When he grows up, he'll turn back into a man, and then he'll marry you. Sally looked confused. Marry young Lady Rachel? Margaret smiled gently. That's right. That's why you must get along well with the young master. Understand? No matter what she does, Rachel will marry me in the end. Sally turned abruptly and bumped into a solid chest. A bearded man smiled. Hey, little one. He looked down at the girl. That story you were just telling. Could you tell me a little more? Sally stiffened and looked up at him. Yes. A sinister smile flashed across the man's face. About that young lady. How a girl becomes your husband. Night fell. A crescent moon hung in the starry sky. Count sat at his desk, holding a few pages of parchment. Owen stood opposite him. The investigators said they will return to the capital the day after tomorrow. Count's brow furrowed. So soon? He looked down at the report in his hands. I thought they'd stay for at least a month, having come all this way. Owen continued his report. Ostensibly, it was an imperial order to visit the young master who was sent to the countryside. In reality, their purpose was surveillance. To withdraw the dispatched observers so quickly. Count's fingers tapped lightly on the desk. A sense of foreboding washed over him. He recalled his mother's dying wish. Father, please protect Rakides. Please protect your grandson. Count fell into deep thought. A moment later, he looked up, his eyes resolute. Strengthen the villa's security. Owen bowed his head. As you command. Also, regarding Miss Vivian Herson, Owen handed over a document. About her father, D.S. Herson. I have gathered the information you requested. The investigator's visit and the child's entry into the villa coincide too perfectly. I was the one who brought Vivian in. It's unlikely she's connected to the Emperor, but it's best to be sure. Count unfolded the parchment in his hands. D.S. Herson, 29 years old, currently runs a bakery in the village. His relationship with the villagers is quite amicable. Couts continued to press, and his wife? Owen replied, she reportedly passed away 5 years ago. Before he settled in the village with his daughter, it seems he wasn't originally a baker. But no one knows his past. Count's gaze was sharp. Did the Emperor's men have any contact with Vivian's father? Owen's expression was grave. On the day the investigators arrived, the knights did go to the bakery. But from the knights' conversation, it seems they learned nothing. Couts flipped through the report. Anything else? No other contacts so far. Also, regarding this matter, there is something I must give you. Owen placed a pink diary with a rabbit on the cover on the desk, pushing it toward Couts. What is this? This is a report Miss Vivian wrote for you. She said she observed and analyzed the Imperial Knights. Couts looked at Owen in disbelief. That little kid did this? Why analyze the Imperial Knights? Owen recalled his conversation with Vivian. She wanted to give this to you. For what reason? Vivian lifted her small face, her smile bright and firm. Because I'm on the Duke's side, of course. Owen relayed to Couts. That child is on your side. Your Grace. Couts was silent. His fingertips gently opened the diary's cover. A soft sound broke the silence of the study. Couts read the diary. Vivian's diary. Month X, day X. On my way home after a big meal, I ran into 3 knight uncles. One was fat, one was thin. The uncle in the lead was neither tall nor short. The knight uncles asked me if the young lady was doing well, and if I had seen her use magic. A cold smile touched Couts' lips. He muttered to himself. I sensed it from the first time we met. After breakfast, I went out. The knight uncles were next to the general store. The lead uncle wasn't there today. They asked what the general store delivered to the Duke's house, and if there were any strange items. She's a sharp child. Her talent for observing the situation is astonishing. A hint of approval flashed in in Kaltz's eyes. We've acquired quite a useful talent, haven't we? Kaltz closed the diary. Bring Vivian here. The next day, the ducal manor was bathed in morning light. Light footsteps echoed in the garden. Vivian ran through the garden. I wonder how Rachel is doing. Her cheeks were slightly flushed. Even though she won't be waiting for me, I really want to see her soon. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared on the manor's steps. It was Rachel. Vivian stopped abruptly. Her gaze was locked on. Rachel saw her too. Young lady, she called out in pleasant surprise. Vivian broke into a brilliant smile and ran towards Rachel with her arms outstretched. Rachel turned and left, her figure disappearing behind the portico. Huh? Why did she just leave? Did she not hear me? Vivian hurriedly chased after her. Young lady. She grabbed Rachel's sleeve. Young lady. Rachel whipped around, her eyes cold. The wooden sword in her hand glinted. She spoke coldly. Why did you come back? Are you here to say goodbye too? Rachel's eyes filled with disgust. I don't need that. Go back. Vivian froze. Wait, goodbye. She watched Rachel's distant back. Are you afraid of me too? Afraid that getting involved with a traitor's child will bring trouble to your family? Is this how Rachel's friends left her too? Vivian had a realization. So she's angry because she thought I was going to leave too. Because I couldn't come see her for a few days. Because she's afraid of being hurt again. That fear has closed off that child's heart. Rachel's profile was stern. She's the villain from the novel. But deep down, she's just a child who's afraid of being abandoned. Vivian looked at Rachel, huddled in the corner. That lonely figure. Her heart ached. I have to let her know that I'm not afraid of her. I never thought about leaving her. Vivian quickened her pace to catch up. Young lady. Then, Rachel stopped and turned around. Vivian panted behind her. It's okay, even if she pushes me away. Vivian clenched her fists, her eyes determined. Then I'll just get a little closer. Until that child trusts me completely. I just need to stay by her side. Vivian started walking, chasing after Rachel's back. Young lady, let's go together. Rachel swung her wooden sword, striking the training dummy hard. Vivian sat to the side, watching quietly. Rachel's profile was tense, sweat trickled down, her eyes focused and sharp. Rachel's swordsmanship grew faster and fiercer. Every swing whistled through the air. Vivian rested her chin in her hands. Isn't she pushing herself too hard? She'll get hurt at this rate. The wooden sword suddenly swung down. The sound of the heavy blow was deafening. Rachel's body swayed. The wooden sword flew from her grasp, and she closed her eyes in pain. Vivian jumped to her feet in alarm. Young lady, she rushed forward. Vivian took Rachel's hand, her eyes full of worry. Are you okay? It's bleeding. Rachel violently shook her hand off. Let go. Vivian froze. Young lady. Rachel clutched her collar, gasping in pain. She turned and ran. Vivian hurriedly chased after her. Young lady, wait. Rachel clutched the wound on her wrist. I have to clear up this misunderstanding. Tell her I'll never leave. Vivian's pupils suddenly contracted. A sharp pain shot through her body. She gasped in pain, her body swaying. Vivian clutched her chest. My heart. Of all times. Vivian gasped in pain, her body curling up on the ground. I have to go after Rachel. She clutched the fabric over her chest, cold sweat soaking her forehead. It hurts so much. If I just grab that hand now. Isidore's running back flickered before her eyes, blurry and indistinct. Vivian staggered to her feet. Thought the pain will disappear. But I don't want to do that. Now that I know Rachel's pain, I can't use her like that. Vivian took a deep breath and forced her body to chase after Rachel's retreating figure. I have to hurry, so she won't get hurt again. Vivian ran forward, but her body suddenly sank, falling into endless darkness. A call echoed in the darkness. Vivian. Vivian. Rachel picked up the unconscious Vivian and ran hastily. She held her tightly. Please, I'm begging you. Fragments of memory flashed back. Before I give my heart to that girl, I think it would be better to end all of this now. Rachel's eyes were downcast. You'll leave me one day anyway. You're also afraid of getting involved with a traitor's child. You and your family will be ruined before you can hurt me. However, Rachel stopped abruptly. She turned, her gaze firm as she looked back the way she came. Vivian, I won't let you get hurt again. Rachel stopped. She heard a strange sound from behind her. Vivian. Vivian had collapsed on the ground, completely unconscious. Her pink hair was splayed out on the ground. Darkness swallowed everything. A teacup fell from a height, shattering into pieces. Rachel's memory flashed back. A younger her, shaking her fallen mother on the ground. Mom. She called out again and again. Mom. Mom. Her mother lay in a pool of blood, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth, her eyes closed, silent. Rachel's consciousness was pulled back to reality. Vivian lay before her, just like her mother back then. The world instantly lost its color. Rachel woke with a start. She was gasping for air. Vivian. She sat by the bed, her hands clasped tightly. Please, I'm begging you, open your eyes. I'm even willing to accept your goodbye now. You can abandon me. You can leave. Just live. The door was suddenly pushed open, and a doctor rushed in carrying a medical bag. My lady. He quickly walked to the bedside. My lady, what happened? We thought you were the one who fainted. Rachel had her back to him, her voice hoarse. Sir Brian, she pleaded in a low voice. Save her. The doctor, Brian, was stunned. What? In Rachel's memory, her mother's figure appeared. Save this child, please. Brian looked at Rachel's back, deeply shaken. The young master's reaction. This is the first time since the day Lady Isela collapsed. Brian recalled the funeral. Rachel sat on a bench, expressionless, without shedding a single tear. Brian's thoughts returned to the present. He's finally showing emotion again. This should be a good thing, but a situation that triggers trauma like this is too dangerous. Brian set down his medical bag with a soft sound. Brian placed a hand on Rachel's shoulder. He soothed her gently. Judging by her complexion, there shouldn't be a problem. I'll examine her now. Brian walked to the bed. He leaned over and gently took Vivian's wrist. The door was gently closed with a soft click. Margaret entered the room. My lady, I've come to inform you that it's time for your etiquette lesson. Before she could finish, she saw the scene by the bed. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my, what happened to that child? Dr. Brian explained to Margaret, I heard she suddenly fainted. Although there are no external injuries, we need to conduct further examinations to be sure. A faint smile touched Margaret's lips. Oh dear. She walked behind Rachel and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Young master, you look very pale. Would you like to go rest? Rachel didn't turn around. No. Margaret's eyes darkened. I'll stay here until the examination is over. Margaret's tone was gentle. If this puts your mind at ease, then so be it. We'll postpone today's etiquette lesson until tomorrow. Rachel replied in a low voice, Thank you, Nanny. Margaret turned and left, her footsteps echoing in the hallway. The gentleness on her face vanished, replaced by cold fury. To defy me, for that little brat. Margaret clenched her fists. I've disliked her for a long time. This is perfect. It's an excellent opportunity to get rid of that brat. Vivian lay quietly in bed, her breathing steady, completely unaware of the coming storm. Margaret leaned against the door, her thoughts drifting back 5 years. It all began the day Isela died. In the memory, Rachel sat all alone, a frail figure. From that moment on, the taming of Rachel began. Margaret combed the young Rachel's hair. The boy in the mirror was expressionless. If you take one step out of this manner, his majesty will grow to dislike you, and so will everyone else. Margaret's voice was cold and clear. Once the fact that you're a boy is exposed, everyone in this manner will be in danger. The comb moved through the black hair with an unquestionable force. To preserve the family, the Duke might even abandon you. Margaret looked down at Rachel, but don't worry too much. Her hand stroked Rachel's hair. I will always be with you until the day I die. Taming a child with nowhere to go was as easy as flipping one's hand. Margaret turned, her footsteps echoing in the empty hall. There was only one purpose for taming Rachel. Even though Rachel was living as a girl now, as he grew, the disguise would one day be revealed. The Duke was well aware of this. Flashes of lightning flickered in the room. That's why he secretly had Rachel undergo magic training. Arcs of electricity crackled. Once Rachel had enough power to protect himself, everything would fall into place. He will shed his disguise and become the young Duke of Edolwyn. At that time, if the only ones he can rely on are me and Sally, Sally is very likely to become the future Duchess. Sally and Rachel smiled at each other. Everything is under control, but that commoner brat is getting more and more in the way. Margaret looked at Vivian's humble figure, her eyes turning cold. Somehow, she won the favor of that arrogant Celts. She even managed to take Rachel out of the manor. Margaret folded her hands, a calculating glint in her eyes. But if this child is sick, we'll have no choice but to send her away. I was originally planning to scare her off, just like I did with Rachel's other friends. But this makes things much simpler. A knock on the door. Margaret stood outside. Your Grace the Duke. It's me, Margaret. There's something I'd like to discuss with you. I wonder if you have a moment. Duke Hout sat behind his desk, his gaze sharp. You said the playmate girl suddenly fainted? Margaret stood with her hands down. Yes. She continued her report. Sir Brian is examining her. Margaret rested her cheek on her hand, looking weary. The young master insists on staying by her side, so I temporarily allowed it. She turned to Celts, her tone changing. But, although I certainly hope this isn't the case, Margaret's fingers lightly touched her lips, her eyes showing deliberately crafted worry. If that child has contracted some serious illness, I worry it will bring great pain to the young master. Kautz's fingertip lightly touched his lower lip as he fell into thought. Her suggestion to separate Vivian and Rachel is not without reason. Rachel already understands the concept of death. If Vivian were to die, it would undoubtedly break his heart. Kautz fell silent. Margaret waited quietly. Margaret lowered her eyelids, a barely perceptible smile on her lips. The plan succeeded. Vivian lay in bed, sunlight gently falling on her. She was clutching something tightly in her arms. Her eyelids fluttered. She slowly opened her eyes, her consciousness hazy. What happened? Where am I? Vivian sat up abruptly, looking around in a daze. Vivian stared at the unfamiliar ceiling. Why am I lying here? The sharp pain in her heart still lingered from a moment ago. That tearing pain. Then everything went dark. Did I faint? Vivian threw off the covers, her face flushed. Where's Rachel? She saw Rachel sitting by the bed. Rachel, it's you. Vivian stared at her. Has she been by my side this whole time? Rachel's cheeks flushed red. Rachel shot to her feet, her face bright red. Are you okay? I'm sorry, young lady. I must have scared you. Vivian waved her hand. It's not a serious illness. I've been like this for several years. Wait, did Rachel carry me all the way here? Rachel's voice cut through. You've been sick for several years? Vivian clapped her hands over her mouth. Oh no, I let it slip. I was going to tell them after winning her in the Duke's trust. What if she dislikes me for being a sickly person? I am doomed. Vivian stole a glance, her eyes dimming. The air instantly froze. Rachel's expression was as cold as ice. Oh no, she's angry because I hid my illness. Rachel's voice was devoid of warmth. So you're saying you faint like this every time? Vivian here explained it. No. This is the first time I've actually fainted. Usually it just hurts for a little while, and then it's fine. About 20 minutes. Rachel's eyes sharpened. So, you were already in pain before you came to find me. Vivian stiffened. No, I can't be stripped of my friend's status for contempt of court. What should I say at a time like this? Rachel's voice grew low. Why didn't you tell me you were in pain? Vivian was stunned. Rachel's voice trembled. I thought you were going to die because of me. Vivian's heart skipped a beat. Is she worried about me? No matter how cold she becomes in the future, that's a story for the distant future. Right now, standing before me is just an innocent child worried about her friend. That's right. Rachel is no longer just a character in a novel. She's my friend, so I have to tell her. Vivian lowered her eyes. Actually, I was enduring the pain because there was something I wanted to tell you. Rachel leaned forward. Something to tell me? She suddenly grabbed Rachel's hand and held it tight. Vivian looked up, her gaze firm. I'm not afraid of you, young lady, even if you're the child of a traitor. Vivian's golden eyes shone with an incredible light. Rachel's blue eyes were full of sincerity. You haven't done anything wrong. You're just being treated unfairly when you've done nothing. If a friend is being treated unfairly, you shouldn't run away. You should believe in them and help them. So I will stay by your side. On the fleshy part of Rachel's palm, Vivian's hand held it tightly, and a knock on the door sounded. A maid's voice came from outside the door. Young lady, may we come in for a moment? Rachel, come in. The door opened, and Owen and Margaret walked in. Vivian was stunned. Why are the two of them here together? Are they going to blame me for hiding my illness? Owen hurried forward. Vivian, I heard you fainted. Are you all right? Vivian gave a relieved smile. Yes, it's all thanks to the young lady for calling the doctor so promptly. Owen nodded in agreement. I'm glad to hear you're all right. That's wonderful. Wait, that expression. Margaret and Owen exchanged a look, a barely noticeable smile playing on their lips. A sense of foreboding gripped Vivian. Owen turned to Rachel, his tone gentle but firm. However, for safety's sake, I think it's best for you to rest at home. Overworking yourself when you're sick will only make the situation worse. Vivian's heart sank. Do you mean I can't come to the mansion for now? Owen kept his smile. Of course. We'll provide all the support you need so you can recover and return quickly. It sounds like he's doing this for my own good, but he's actually trying to drive me away from Rachel. Vivian's eyes darkened. They want to drive me away from Rachel, using the excuse of a sick child. A child with an unknown illness who is a threat to Rachel's health. That's why Margaret is so confident. A cold sneer formed on Vivian's lips. But my illness is actually good for Rachel. Once the ducal household finds out about my condition, they'll want me to stay by his side. Vivian looked at Rachel. The question is, will they believe me? To diagnose a magic-related illness, that requires someone who can wield magic. An ice blue light gathered in a palm, gently resting on a man's head. Because the process is very complicated. In the worst-case scenario, they might just throw me out. But I have no other choice. I have to give it a try. The door was thrown open. Brian burst in. Young lady. He adjusted his glasses, panting as he explained, I was just looking through the medical magic books. Owen asked calmly, what is it? Brian explained eagerly, my apologies. I found the name of the child's illness, so I hurried over to tell you. Owen pressed, you found the name of the illness? Brian opened the book. Yes, the child's illness is not contagious. Owen impatiently held out his hand. What illness is it? Brian's eyes shone with the light of discovery. Magical overload. Her symptoms are a perfect match. Oh my God, brilliant fireworks exploded in Vivian's vision. I needed an expert opinion, and my gamble paid off. Vivian clasped her hands together. My good luck must be his misfortune. Brian smiled confidently. We can cure this child's illness. Vivian's eyes sparkled. Doctor, you're amazing. Calt's confirmed. So you're saying the child's illness is magical overload? Owen, with his back to Calt's, replied, yes, Sir Brian has confirmed it. Sir Brian can read mana, so there can be no mistake. I only told Vivian we have a way to alleviate her symptoms. Calt said, I see. There's no need to tell her about Rachel's constitution. Celt was lost in thought. I never thought that child would become Rachel's playmate. Such good fortune for that child and for Rachel. In the very village where we were hiding to conceal Rachel's power, there lived a child with a rare illness that can enhance Rachel's power. Caltz tapped his fingers on the desk. A coincidence, so perfect it's suspicious. But sometimes life just blesses you with good luck. Owen added, and the young lady seems to like Vivian very much. Caltz tilted his head slightly. Rachel? I only brought her here to cover up the fact that Rachel is a boy. A diversion. I never thought the two children would hit it off so well. Caltz murmured to himself. That's good. He rose from his desk and walked to the window. A carriage was parked outside. Is that Vivian and her father? Diaz was lifting Vivian down from the carriage. He asked gently, Vivi, are you okay? It doesn't hurt anymore, right? If it hurts, you have to tell me. Vivian nodded emphatically. I'm completely fine now. You must have heard she fainted and came all this way to pick her up. But that face seems somewhat familiar. Caltz's brow furrowed. He reminded me of someone. A memory struck him like a bolt of lightning. That man. Could he be like that man? Caltz's gaze grew sharp, but that man is dead. He stood by the window, gazing at the departing carriage. The situation doesn't permit it, but there's no harm in checking. Caltz gave an order. Owen, do a deep investigation into Diaz's past. The carriage traveled down a path through the woods, its wheels rumbling. Vivian sat inside, her face beaming with a happy smile. It's wonderful that everything went so smoothly. Most importantly, Rachel and I have become true friends. Vivian clenched her small fists, making a vow. Rachel, as long as you trust me, I will make you. I will make you happy. Suddenly, a piercing gaze hit her. Vivian's smile froze. She looked up sharply. Dad? Why? Whoa. Dad, where are your glasses? Diaz touched his own cheek. I was so worried I completely forgot. No wonder the men were staring at me too. What if I end up charming the men too? He was joking, but his eyes were trembling. Every time I get sick, Dad gets scared to death. He told me Mom passed away from an illness when I was very little. So little that I can't remember her face at all. He also said his family cut ties with him before he married Mom. Now, I'm the only family he has left. Diaz gently stroked Vivian's hair. Daddy's fine, my little princess. He must have been terrified by the news of me fainting. Vivian reached out her hands and tightly gripped her father's clothes. Dad! Diaz hugged her, his body trembling. Vivian buried her face in her father's chest. Don't worry so much, Dad. I'll listen to the doctor, and I'll get better soon. I'll be with you for a long, long time. Diaz stroked her hair. Yes, let's do that. It will definitely happen. There was a sob in Dad's voice. Vivian hugged him tightly. I'll pretend I didn't notice. It's a little embarrassing for a grown man to cry. It's definitely not, because I'm getting choked up too. Vivian hugged her father back tightly. For my poor dad. For the dad who only has me in his eyes. I must change the ending. A few days later, the incident died down. The grand mansion was bathed in sunlight, and everything was back to normal. But if anything had changed, Vivian appeared, jogging. Young lady, were you waiting for me? Rachel, with his back to her, said no. Vivian sidled up to Rachel. You were so waiting for me. I'm positive you were. Rachel turned his face away. I said I wasn't. Vivian's smile was brilliant. Vivian clasped her hands together with a brilliant smile. All right, whatever you say. So what are you doing out here? Rachel fell silent. His eyes wavered, and his cheeks flushed. I just came out to tell you to go to the mansion, not the greenhouse. He could have just sent a maid. Why did he come himself? He was totally waiting for me, just too shy to admit it. Vivian took Rachel's hand. Okay, I'll let go this time. So what should we play today? Rachel lowered his gaze. I haven't decided yet. Vivian tilted her head in thought. Her eyes lit up. Oh, I know. Can we go see the library? I passed by it the other day and saw it. It looked huge. I'd really love to see it. Rachel flinched, his body going rigid. Vivian's face turned pale in an instant. Oh my God, what did I do? I grabbed Rachel's hand without even thinking. The last time he let me hold his hand, it was probably just because he pitied me for fainting. Is he going to pull away? Vivian's heart pounded. Don't panic. Steady footsteps approached. Owen was coming down the stairs. Ah, you've arrived, Vivian. Vivian immediately let go of his hand and looked up. Oh, hello, Mr. Butler. Owen smiled and asked, how are you feeling? Vivian puffed out her chest. I feel wonderful. Owen gave a relieved smile. That's good. His expression became serious. Vivian, Owen said in a level tone, His Grace the Duke is looking for you. Vivian froze. What? His Grace the Duke is looking for me? She pointed to herself, her face full of confusion. Why? A teacup was set down gently, without making a crisp sound. Vivian sat across from Kaltz. This is my first time face-to-face with the Duke. He doesn't look like a bad person, but he's incredibly strict. I can't let my guard down at all. Kaltz put down his teacup. Do you know what the Emperor thinks of Rachel? Vivian's body stiffened. She lowered her head and answered, the lady told me a little about it yesterday. Kaltz crossed his arms. No, before that. Kaltz's gaze was sharp. I'm asking if you knew about my relationship with the Emperor before you ever talked to Rachel. Vivian lowered her head, thinking. Actually, I wrote a report for the Duke before. I came home after that delicious feast, and 3 knights were waiting for me. One was tall, one was gaunt, and the leader was just average. I could invent a reason for writing the report, but they asked me how the young lady was doing, and if I had seen him use magic. This man is not someone I can fool. It's better to confess than to be caught in a clumsy lie. Vivian raised her head, her gaze steady. To be honest, I already knew. I accidentally overheard the adults in the village talking about it. Kaltz leaned forward. Then, what do you think of His Majesty the Emperor? Tell me your thoughts. Vivian flinched. I was completely unprepared for this question. Can I badmouth the Emperor here? The Duke and the Emperor are like fire and water, but the Emperor is still the ruler of this country. If I just start cursing him at the first chance I get, won't I seem terrible? Is that really the answer the Duke wants to hear? Vivian kept her head down. I'm not really sure. I've never seen the Emperor with my own eyes. Kaltz's gaze turned icy. You know, I didn't call you here to listen to such a lukewarm answer. Vivian continued to explain, I've been told that you shouldn't judge someone based only on rumors. So I haven't really thought about the Emperor. But there is one thing I'm certain of. What is that? Vivian looked up, her gaze clear and resolute. I believe it is wrong to punish a child for their father's sins. Vivian clasped her hands tightly. That's why I want to stay by the young lady's side. Kaltz's eyes shifted. Do you pity the child? Isn't it too presumptuous for a commoner girl to say she pities a noble lady? A faint smile appeared on Kaltz's lips. I like people who have their own beliefs. One fawning dog is enough. I want to hire a person, not a loyal hound. Someone who can point the way when I am lost. Someone who can stop me before I make a mistake. A smart person with their own mind. Kaltz stared at her. In that respect, you have made quite an impression on me. He spoke slowly. I have decided to become your patron. Vivian's pupils constricted. Her mind went blank. What? What did he just say? Kaltz was unperturbed. When nobles find a promising sprout, they start cultivating them from a young age. Become a person who is useful to me, and you will be able to help Rachel in the future. Of course, this means that you will have to come to the ducal manor every day for lessons. Do you not like the idea? Vivian shot up from her chair. No, I'd be more than happy to. She clasped her hands to her chest. I will give it my all. Vivian walked out of the room, the large doors closing slowly behind her. She stood still for a moment in silence. Suddenly, Vivian couldn't contain herself and started to jump. She hopped and skipped down the corridor, waving her arms in excitement. It feels so good to be acknowledged. Vivian cupped her cheeks, almost overflowing with happiness. Rachel was standing in the corridor. What are you doing? Vivian cried out, young lady. She immediately ran over. Vivian threw her arms around Rachel and hugged him tightly. Vivian announced excitedly, the Duke decided to become my patron. We can study together every day now. Isn't that great? Rachel's cheeks were flushed, his breathing quick. Vivian noticed his strange state. Young lady, your face is much redder than usual. Are you sick? Vivian reached out her hand and gently placed it on Rachel's forehead. Rachel abruptly pushed her away. Stay back a little. Vivian staggered. Was I being too familiar? She quickly waved her hands and explained, sorry. I was just so happy. I got carried away. Vivian added, in any case, this is good news, right? You're happy too, young lady, aren't you? Rachel lowered his gaze. He said nothing. Vivian asked curiously, by the way, what are you doing here? Were you waiting for me? Rachel replied, quietly, the library. You said you wanted to see it. Rachel held out his hand, an invitation. It's unbelievable. Rachel is actually taking the initiative to hold my hand. When she didn't respond, Rachel pulled his hand back. If you don't want to go, then forget it. Vivian immediately grabbed it back. Of course not. I want to go. I really want to go. She held Rachel's hand tightly, afraid he would pull it away again. For some reason, a tingling sensation spread from their clasped hands. Vivian walked down the long corridor, holding Rachel's hand. She didn't let go. She didn't let go for a very long time. Night enveloped the grand castle, the moonlight casting its cold glow. A knight knelt on one knee, hands lowered, awaiting judgment. The emperor sat on his throne, looking down at him. So, not a daughter, but a son? He threw his head back, his laughter growing louder. Ha! The emperor let out a wild laugh. The sound echoed through the empty hall, filled with madness and twisted glee. The knight kept his head bowed, his fists clenched, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. Just as I suspected, a red glint flashed in the emperor's eyes. No wonder he looks so much like his father. The emperor's mind drifted back to the past. Before he was appointed crown prince, he had been jealous of his younger brother, who surpassed him in everything. So jealous that he wanted to kill him. But when he personally witnessed his brother drink the poison, that the emperor felt a pang of regret. A pain cough. His brother collapsed beside the table, his body convulsing. The emperor panicked. Leo, what have I done? Fortunately, Liafried managed to survive. However, his brother knelt before their father, the emperor. Your Majesty, I am unworthy of this position. I believe this position should belong to my elder brother. He is the one who truly has the people's interests at heart. Hearing Liafried plead on his behalf, the emperor was overwhelmed with remorse. Damn it. The emperor hid behind the door, his nails digging deep into his palms. I should have made his death more certain. If this goes on, my brother will take the position I gave up, and I will live forever in his shadow. Murderous intent seethed in the emperor's eyes. I must kill Liafried. And just like that, the blade of the guillotine came crashing down. Blood shot out like an arrow. I seized the imperial throne with my own hands. I sat upon this throne with a river of blood at my feet. I was supposed to be the final victor. However, a messenger burst into the hall. Your Majesty. He fell to his knees, his voice urgent. We have received word. The missing Lady Isella has returned, and she has brought a child with her. Isella? The emperor's pupils contracted. The woman who fled on the eve of her engagement after Liafried's death. If that is his child, could it be? The emperor's breath caught. Who is the child's father? The messenger stammered in reply. Teach that we do not know yet. Enough. The emperor roared. He shot to his feet and stormed out of the great hall. I will go myself. That day, that the churning unease in my chest could not be calmed. I set out for the territory of Duke Edwin. Leo, Liafried. The emperor stared at the child, too stunned to speak. I recognized him in a single glance. That child was the bloodline of my brother, Liafried, whom I had executed myself. After Rachel was born, I was relieved for a while. Just a girl. She couldn't threaten my position, the emperor muttered, sitting at a table, because a voice would echo in his mind. Brother, why did you kill me? I already gave you the throne. Why did you kill me? The emperor would wake from nightmares with a blood-curdling scream. He would fall to the floor in terror, scrambling backward. Don't come any closer. Stay away from me. The ghost of Liafried had started to appear. Even knowing he was a girl, I was never at ease. The emperor sat on his throne, his fingernails digging deep into the flesh of his thumb. Now I finally understand. The emperor bit down hard on his thumb, drawing a bead of blood. A ghost who left behind a cursed child. In that case, I have no choice but to kill him. The emperor raised his head, undisguised killing intent in his eyes. A cruel smile played on his lips. Sunlight fell upon a grand estate. The tutor closed his book. All right, that's all for today's lesson. He added, review is more important than preparation. Please be sure to look over it again. Vivian clasped her hands, smiling brightly. Yes, teacher, thank you very much. Rachel, on the other hand, closed his book with a deadpan expression. The teacher turned to leave, and Rachel and Vivian saw him off. Rachel looked at Vivian. Let's go. Rachel held out his hand. A blush crept onto Vivian's face as she shyly placed her hand on his. They looked at each other and smiled, clasping their hands tightly. Now we're really like friends. In the empty hall, their footsteps echoed. Rachel looked at Vivian beside him. You certainly have an energetic way of saying hello. Honestly, you don't find the lessons interesting at all, do you? You're just pretending to pay attention. Vivian shook her head frantically. No, I really do think it's interesting. Rachel called her out with a blank face. Liar. Vivian's voice trailed off. I'm not lying. The corners of Rachel's mouth turned up slightly. Then what were those doodles you drew in your book? Rachel's gaze fell on the page. It was filled with cute little cartoon characters, along with chibi versions of her and Rachel. Vivian sucked in a sharp breath. When did he see that? That was... Her hands flailed wildly, her cheeks instantly turning beet red. Vivian hurriedly tried to explain. I was reviewing for art class. The teacher said reviewing is more important than preparing. Rachel asked coolly, then what you call dozing off with your eyes half open during philosophy class? It was as if Vivian's soul had left her body. She froze in place. She snapped back to reality, flailing her arms helplessly. Wait a minute. He wasn't paying attention in class at all. He was watching me? It's my fault for dozing off in class, but Vivian clasped her hands, her eyes welling with tears. Please, I'm begging you, don't tell the Duke. Rachel looked at her, his face unreadable. That will depend on how you behave. So mean. Rachel looked at Vivian's puffed-up cheeks, and the corners of his mouth turned up involuntarily. Huh? Rachel is smiling. He's already beautiful, but he's even more stunning when he smiles. Why has he never smiled before? It's such a waste. Rachel stopped walking. Vivian looked at him in confusion. Huh? The smile on his face froze instantly. Why did his expression suddenly change? Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Duke Coutts was coming down with the butler. The Duke. From the way he's dressed, is he going out? Rachel and Vivian quickly bowed in greeting. Your Grace. Mr. Butler. Hello. Coutts stopped in front of them. It looks like your lessons are over. How'd it go today? Vivian immediately put on a brilliant smile. It was very interesting. Today we learned about philosophy, art, and history. He wouldn't rat me out for sleeping in class, would he? He probably wouldn't. Vivian looked at Rachel. He didn't seem to plan on saying anything. Is it because the Duke is here? Coutts turned to the butler. Owen, let's go. He then said to the children, you two can go play for a while. Coutts and Owen walked toward the door, their figures disappearing outside. Vivian waved goodbye. Okay, have a safe trip. The large doors slowly closed, swallowing the figures of the Duke and the butler. The two children stood in the empty hall. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. He doesn't look too happy, but he is his only family, after all. I hope they can get along. Should I get involved? Vivian's face immediately lit up. Young lady, let's go get some snacks too. It's not that I'm happy just because I want to eat snacks. The sky was a brilliant blue, with white clouds unfurling. Sunlight filled the garden. Rachel and Vivian sat in a gazebo, enjoying afternoon tea. Vivian closed her eyes in bliss. This is so delicious. She suddenly choked on her food and began to cough violently. Rachel watched her with a deadpan expression. Don't forget your goal. Vivian looked at Rachel. Young lady, don't you have any worries? Friends are supposed to share their troubles. If something makes you sad, we can comfort each other. If something makes you angry, we can be on each other's side. We can even share secrets we can't tell anyone else. That's how you become even closer friends. Rachel picked up a pastry with his fork. I don't think I have any worries. Maybe he's never talked about this with anyone before. He might not even realize it himself. I'll give an example then. Vivian rested her chin in her hands and let out a long sigh. I do have a worry. Rachel leaned forward. It's about my family. Yes, my dad's family. My dad cut ties with his family so he could marry my mom. They were strongly opposed to the marriage. Even if I ask about my grandparents, he just smiles and evades the question. I wish they could get back in touch and get along. I'm sure my mom in heaven would want my dad to live happily with his family too. Rachel listened quietly. This is a real worry of mine, but I'm bringing it up hoping he'll connect it to his relationship with the Duke. Rachel said, maybe your father is afraid his family won't accept him. Afraid. Rachel lowered his gaze. Family members don't always forgive each other. If the relationship were to break again, he would be truly hurt. Vivian grew thoughtful. I hadn't considered my dad's feelings. Maybe that's really it. She nodded. Is Rachel afraid of being rejected by his grandfather? Vivian leaned forward slightly. Then, young lady, do you have any worries concerning the Duke? Rachel kept his head down. No, I don't. The time isn't right yet. Vivian put on a bright smile. That's wonderful then. But if you ever have any worries in the future, you can always come to me. Rachel looked up. To you? Of course. Aren't we friends? Friends should stick together through thick and thin. Vivian rested her chin in her hands, her smile as bright as a flower. Rachel remained silent. Vivian's voice was gentle but firm. Of course, you don't have to force yourself to speak, but please don't keep it all inside when you're sad. Rachel's blue eyes quivered slightly. Margaret approached from a distance. Young lady, it is time for your next class. Rachel got up to leave. I'm going now. Since it's a class Rachel takes alone, is it the heir's lessons? No, it should be magic training. The original story mentioned it too. Vivian replied with a smile. Okay, young lady. See you tomorrow. Rachel walked off into the distance by himself. Margaret's figure appeared. Vivian watched her back. Why isn't the nanny following him? Margaret walked up to Vivian. I will see you out today. Vivian looked up at Margaret. Nanny, you must be busy. Is this all right? Margaret closed her eyes, a faint smile on her lips. It's fine. Vivian felt a flicker of unease. I have a bad feeling about this. Margaret led Vivian down a path toward the estate's main gate. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. This path skirted the outer edge of the estate. Vivian looked around. Why are we taking this path? Margaret stopped suddenly. She turned around, her voice chillingly cold. Vivian, do you know what the crime of treason is? Vivian's voice trembled. I've learned about it. It is the crime of insulting and threatening His Majesty the Emperor and the imperial family. Margaret sneered. You know it quite well, don't you? Vivian's body stiffened. What is this? This is so sudden. Margaret took a step closer. Then do you also know the fate of a traitor? Her gaze was sinister, as if she were looking at a corpse. Margaret folded her hands in front of her. His Majesty grants them a severe punishment. Execution. A flash of cruelty appeared in Margaret's eyes. To be more specific, the extermination of 3 generations. The parents who raised a traitor are punished by hanging, and the traitor themselves is sent to the guillotine. Margaret's voice was hauntingly unsteady. The traitor's children are sold into slavery in a foreign country, and anyone who helped the traitor receives the same punishment. This is too cruel for a 9-year-old child. Vivian fought back her fear. Why are you telling me this? A twisted smile appeared on Margaret's face. The young lady Rachel's father committed treason against His Majesty the Emperor. This means that if you continue to stay by his side, not only you, but your father as well will be in grave danger. Vivian's pupils contracted violently. She couldn't utter a single word. There was no warmth in Margaret's voice. I am telling you this because you still seem to be completely unaware. So is him. This is why Rachel pushed me away. Rachel's words echoed in Vivian's mind. You'll leave me one day anyway. You're afraid of me too, aren't you? Afraid of getting involved with the child of a traitor, of implicating your family. Vivian's hands clenched into tight fists. This is how he scared away Rachel's friends, driving them away one by one. Vivian looked up and stared directly at Margaret. Then why do you still stay by her side? You and Sally will be in danger too. Margaret's expression grew complicated. That's because she took a deep breath, her eyes firm. I have long since wagered my life to serve the young lady. I believe she is worth the risk. Margaret's tone was dismissive. But you're still young. You don't understand anything, holding on to such thoughts. One day, you will regret it. Vivian looked down without a word, but her fists clenched tighter. Me too. Margaret was stunned. What? Vivian suddenly grabbed her wrist, her gaze incredibly determined. Vivian shook off Margaret's hand. I have bet my life as well. Vivian turned and ran, her figure gradually receding in the sunlight, leaving only a resolute silhouette behind. The water's surface reflected Margaret's image. She stood still. Vivian's determination was fixed on Margaret's shocked face. She clenched her jaw tightly. Vivian turned and rushed toward the depths of the garden. Margaret remained where she was, watching the small figure go. Vivian stopped, standing still before the iron gate. I have to separate Rachel from that woman. The next day, sunlight filled the bustling streets. Vivian and Rachel walked side by side. Rachel turned her head to the side. What are you doing here? Vivian clasped her hands in front of her. I want to buy gifts for the maid sisters. If the young lady gives them gifts personally, you'll be able to get closer to them. Rachel looked bewildered. Why should I get close to the maids? Vivian explained enthusiastically. If you have a good relationship with them, you can have them secretly bring you snacks at night. Rachel turned her face away. I don't need that kind of thing. And even so, they'll still be afraid of me. Vivian's smile froze. A trace of gloom flashed in her golden eyes. That does seem to be the case. a memory surfaced, serving refreshments. Rachel and Vivian sat at a table, but the atmosphere was incredibly cold. But if Rachel wanted to reduce her dependence on her nanny, she had to get closer to the people in the manor. Vivian turned to face Rachel. They're only afraid because they don't know you yet. It's not that they dislike you. Rachel remained silent. Vivian closed her eyes, a gentle smile on her face. The unknown is always frightening. Unknown roads, unknown people. Once they get to know you, they won't be afraid anymore. A glimmer of light quietly appeared in Rachel's blue eyes. Vivian took the initiative to hold Rachel's hand. Warmth enveloped her cool fingertips. A brilliant smile bloomed on Vivian's face. Come on, let's go in. Rachel's cheeks flushed as she was led into the shop by her. A crisp bell chimed. Peter, behind the counter, was startled awake. He sleepily lifted his head. Vivian greeted him cheerfully. Hey there, Peter. Peter was jolted awake, letting out a choked cough. He hastily stood up straight. Vous welcome. He saw who it was and clutched his chest, still shaken. Whoa, you scare me to death, Vivian. It's you. Vivian chuckled mischievously. I'm going to tell your mom you weren't watching the store properly. You were sleeping instead. Peter's face turned red. I wasn't sleeping. I was meditating, thinking about things. Vivian crossed her arms, a skeptical look on her face. Who meditates while snoring? Rachel stood quietly to the side, her expression blank. Peter quickly changed the subject. You must have misheard. Anyway, what do you want to buy? He carefully sized up the unfamiliar child, his gaze full of scrutiny. Peter lowered his voice, quietly asking Vivian, this child. No, is this the young lady? Vivian answered affirmatively, yes. Peter was a little puzzled. What's wrong with her? Is she still shy around strangers? Vivian pointed to the goods on the counter. This is very popular among the maids recently. Rachel quietly asked, who is that child? Vivian answered, that's Peter. He's my friend, the son of the grocery store owner, Lauren. Rachel repeated in a low voice, he's your friend too? She frowned slightly, looking displeased. Does she not like Peter? Vivian answered without hesitation, yes. He's a very close friend of mine. Rachel pressed on, do you like him too? Vivian said, as if it were a matter of course. Of course. Peter is my friend. Rachel's cheeks turned bright red. My lady. He gathered his courage. Then me too. Vivian looked at her, puzzled. What? Rachel looked up, her eyes determined. Please call me by my name too. Just like you call him. Call me by my name too. Vivian hurriedly waved her hands, her cheeks flushing. How can I call you by your first name? Rachel's tone was urgent. It's fine as long as I allow it, isn't it? Vivian was hesitant. Is it really okay? She asked tentatively. Then, Ratch. Rachel's cheeks turned slightly red. She was silent, but her eyes revealed a hint of anticipation. Ah, I see. So our Rachel wants to experience everything friends do. Rachel added, and you have to speak to me informally. Vivian's eyes lit up, her hands clasped tightly to her chest. Speaking informally to the young lady. For a commoner, there's absolutely no reason to refuse. She agreed excitedly, okay. But Rachel immediately regretted it. No, never mind. Vivian turned around and took her hand. So what gift do you want to buy? Do you have anything in mind? Of course, just trust me. The carriage swayed gently. Vivian leaned against Rachel's shoulder and fell into a deep sleep. Rachel's body was stiff, his gaze unable to move from her. Vivian mumbled something indistinct in her sleep, the corners of her mouth turning up slightly. Rachel gazed at her. Are you eating even in your dreams? He couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. This was the first time, besides my mother and nanny, the first time someone had taken my hand on their own. No, to be more precise, I will stay by your side, my lady. Vivian was the first person to take my hand again, the hand that always pulled away for fear of the secret being exposed. At that moment, her honey-colored eyes shone brilliantly. This small hand I held was soft and warm. I didn't want to let go for even a second. Only Vivian is special, because this child is on my side. However, in Vivian's eyes, I'm not special, just one among many friends. But I don't want to be that disposable friend. I want her to look only at me, to hold only my hand. A blush spread across Rachel's cheeks, his gaze unable to move from Vivian. I want her to like only me. Just as you are my only one, I want to be your only one. I want to be someone special to you. If we share a secret, Vivian had once said with a smile, friends should share their true feelings. Share those secrets you can't tell anyone else. That's how you become closer. Rachel looked down at the sleeping Vivian. Can we really become closer? Even if she finds out I'm a man, will she still stay by my side? Rachel tilted his head to look at Vivian. Sunlight streamed through the carriage window, bathing them both. Yes, if it's Vivian, maybe it will be okay. She stayed by my side, even knowing the Emperor was watching me. I'll tell her when she wakes up. Tell her that I'm actually a man. Vivian said. It's almost time for me to go home. What a shame. She suggested, Rachel, let's meet again the day after tomorrow. Rachel frowned in confusion. Why the day after tomorrow? Can't we meet tomorrow? Vivian gently reminded her. Tomorrow is the anniversary of your mother's death. Aren't you going to mourn her? Rachel's eyes dimmed and her lips trembled slightly. She lowered her head, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Oh, I don't do those things. Vivian asked with concern. Why? Were you not on good terms with her? If so, I won't mention it again. She added, we're friends. I don't want to say anything that would upset you. Rachel's arms tightened. It's not like that. Then why is it? Rachel's voice trembled slightly. I don't think grandfather would like it. He wouldn't like me mourning for mother. What? Vivian stepped forward and hugged her. Why would you think that? You're her daughter. It's only natural to miss and respect her. Rachel remained silent, letting Vivian embrace her. Rachel's eyes flickered as memories flooded back. A young Rachel stood outside a door, listening to her grandfather's sorrowful voice. If it wasn't for that child, Rachel, you wouldn't have suffered like this. You wouldn't have gotten so sick. Father. Grandfather knelt on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Isella, how could you end up like this to save him? Mother's illness is because of me? Rachel felt a chill run through him. I kill Mom. Rachel knelt before his mother's coffin. Grandfather was draped over the casket, crying his heart out. Grandfather must hate me. I hate grandfather too, but I'm still so sorry. I don't want to see him cry, so it's better if I don't go to the memorial service. Rachel was jolted back to the present, breaking free from his memories. Vivian looked at Rachel. Then, Rachel, you just have to answer one thing for me honestly. Do you miss your mother? Rachel lowered his eyes, falling into silence. He slowly began to speak. Actually, I miss her. Rachel looked up, his blue eyes full of sincerity. Very much. Vivian's expression grew complex. She watched him quietly. Vivian took Rachel's hand. Then, let's go see your mother. Rachel asked, confused, how? Vivian explained, there's a portrait of her in the villa too, right? Do you know where it is? Rachel thought for a moment. I think it's in the gallery on the 4th floor. Vivian's eyes sparkled. Then you'll go with me today. The Duke will be mourning tomorrow, so if we sneak in today, he won't know. Rachel nodded. Okay, I want to go. Vivian smiled brightly. That's great. She suddenly remembered something. But we need to bring flowers to pay respects to the deceased. An idea sparked in Rachel's mind. Speaking of which, there was a flower Mother liked when she was alive. Vivian asked curiously, oh, what flower is it? It's a maca flower. It only blooms in the north. Rachel's eyes dimmed. In that case, it won't bloom here. Vivian squeezed her hand. Then let's make them ourselves. Rachel looked blank. Make flowers ourselves? Vivian explained excitedly, yes. Can you tell me what it looks like? There should be a drawing in the study. Vivian immediately turned around. Okay, then Rachel, you go find the drawing. I'll go check the gallery to see if anyone's there. She turned back and waved at Rachel. See you in a bit. At the end of the hallway, an ornate door stood quietly. Sally approached quietly, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She placed her hand on the doorknob and turned it gently. Vivian, your end has come. Vivian raised her hands and cheered. All done. Vivian rested her chin in her hand, proudly admiring the paper flowers on the table. I was worried it would be a mess, but it turned out so well. Am I an origami genius? Rachel lowered her head and silently clenched her fists. Rachel had done 70 of the folding. Vivian picked up the box full of paper flowers. Then let's go now. There's almost no one in the gallery. It should be fine. Rachel nodded lightly. Okay. Rachel and Vivian arrived at the gallery entrance. She carefully pushed the door open. No one was inside. They tiptoed along. Vivian suddenly bumped into a figure, stumbling backward. Margaret looked at her coldly. Vivian gasped. Is that the nanny? Margaret's voice was devoid of warmth. Let's have a talk. A maid followed behind Margaret. An ominous premonition rose in her heart. Sally is here too. What is going on? Vivian looked up at Margaret. Nanny, is something the matter? Sally grabbed Vivian's wrist and interrogated her fiercely. You stole something from the young lady, didn't you? Vivian was stunned by the sudden accusation. What? Rachel stepped in front of Vivian. What are you suddenly talking about? Vivian has been with me the whole time. She hasn't done anything suspicious. Sally immediately retorted, no. I saw her leaving the young lady's room earlier and then going somewhere else. Sally pointed at Vivian. She must have secretly snuck back to the room by herself. Vivian immediately denied it. I didn't go back to the room at all. The young lady was already there when I returned. Sally crossed her arms. Did anyone see you during that time? Vivian's eyes darted away. There are almost no maids on the 4th floor, so no one would have seen me. Vivian straightened her back. I don't need to prove my innocence. You're the ones who need to prove I'm guilty. Do you have any proof? Sally pointed to the bag on her shoulder. That bag. Vivian froze, clutching the bag strap tightly. A cold sweat instantly soaked her back. I was so focused on stuffing the flowers in that I didn't check what else was inside. And the paper that Rachel and I made. The flowers are in there too. If someone sees them, I'll have to explain what they are. Our plan to sneak into the gallery will be exposed. What do I do? Sally suddenly rushed forward and snatched Vivian's bag. Sally shouted provocatively, since you're so confident, then take it out and show us. Vivian was flustered. Hey! Sally emptied the bag in one motion. Pink paper flowers scattered everywhere. What do you think you're doing? A black bow hair tie landed among the flowers, standing out conspicuously. Sally gasped in a low voice. Isn't this Rachel's hair tie? Vivian and Rachel looked at each other, stunned. Why is it in my bag? Vivian suddenly looked up at Margaret. Could it be? She set a trap to drive me away. But why would she go this far? Sally triumphantly picked up the hair tie. See? You did steal something. Sally pointed at the paper flowers on the floor. What are these scraps of paper? You made these just to hide the hair tie, didn't you? I didn't think you were so wicked. Other servants whispered at the doorway. What's happening? Did she get into trouble? It looks like she stole something from the young lady. Margaret glared at Vivian. Vivian, why did you steal the young lady's hair tie? The young lady trusted you so much. You've disappointed me greatly. Rachel stared blankly at the hair tie on the floor. Vivian forced herself to calm down. I have to find a way to prove my innocence. But what can I say? I was the one who suggested going to the gallery. I was also the one who told her to go to the study to find the book. Now the hair tie has come out of my bag. Will Rachel still believe me? What if she thinks I've been lying to her all along? The commotion at the door grew louder. A deep voice rang out. What is all this noise about? The crowd automatically parted. The servants lowered their heads in terror. Oh my God! Vivian's heart sank. Duke Coutts walked over slowly, the butler following behind him. His cold gaze swept across the scene. A light flickered in Vivian's eyes. All I wanted was to become friends with the Duke. Coutts straightened up slightly. He watched her quietly. Coutts leaned forward. Friends? Why? I can't just say it's to observe your relationship with Rachel. Vivian gave a brilliant smile. Because, Duke, you seem like a good person. Vivian recalled her philosophy teacher's words. Having a good friend is like experiencing another life. That's why I want to be friends with the Duke. Coutts's lips curved slightly. Did sending her to class make her head even heavier? Vivian clasped her hands together. It'll be fun to be friends with me. I'm friends with a lot of people the Duke's age. Coutts held his forehead. So, this isn't your first time making friends with someone your own age. He let out a soft laugh. Coutts finally relented. All right, you can come find me anytime. Vivian's face instantly lit up with a brilliant smile. From that day on, sunlight streamed through the window, falling on the green plants. Birds chirped outside the window. Whenever Rachel went to her air lessons, Vivian would come to see the Duke. At first, I was worried he would get annoyed and send me away. Vivian sat across from Coutts, with exquisite desserts on the table. She clasped her hands together. Thank you for the treat. Vivian picked up a cupcake and took a big, happy bite. He prepares snacks for me every time. He must like me. Coutts looked at her. What do you want to talk about today? Vivian put down the cake. In philosophy class, I read a book called Life is a Series of Regrets. I'd like to talk to the Duke about it. Coutts chuckled softly. Reading such a profound book at 9 years old. That's impressive. Vivian asked seriously, in your life, have you ever had a true regret? After reading this book, I started thinking about some things from the past again. Coutts pressed things from the past. Vivian's gaze drifted into the distance. One time, my dad and I went to the forest. A small bird landed on a branch outside the window. The sun was shining brightly. Vivian continued. I found a baby bird that had lost its mother. Vivian leaned down to look at the little one in the nest. It was adorable. I took good care of it, and then I released it back into the forest. Vivian held her father's hand, waving goodbye on the forest path. The little bird flapped its wings and flew high. Take care. But not long after, it died in front of my house. Vivian stared blankly at the small bird's body in front of the door. Blood stained its feathers. I think it was bitten while trying to escape a snake and fled back to our house. Coutts looked at her. So, you regret releasing the bird back into the forest. Vivian lowered her head, her voice full of sadness. Very much. If I hadn't sent it away, maybe it would still be alive now. I've also thought a lot about it. Kaltz looked at her, his tone gentle but firm. An act of kindness doesn't always lead to a good outcome. But that wasn't your fault. You made the best choice you could at the time without knowing the future. And ultimately, leaving your arms and flying into the sky was that chick's own decision. Vivian kept her head down. That may be true, but if I hadn't let it go back then, would have stayed? Looking at it from another angle, even if it were safely raised in a cage, it might have longed for the outside world. It might even have resented you. Kaltz spread his hands. There's no end to hypotheticals. So let's just look at the facts. What are the facts? Vivian looked up, a hint of confusion in her eyes. Kaltz's gaze was gentle. That bird lived well when it was with you, and it enjoyed its freedom after returning to the forest. No matter how painful the past is, you must learn to let it go. That little one wouldn't want you to be trapped in memories either. Vivian said softly, "Thank you, Duke. But have you ever had regrets yourself?" Kaltz's body stiffened slightly as he sat in silence. Vivian's eyes were sincere. "You listened to my story. I'd like to hear yours." Kaltz fell silent, gazing at the child before him. "For some reason, I feel I can tell this child everything." Kaltz began to speak slowly. "How can a life be without regrets? You know, I once had a daughter, right?" Vivian asked, "Is that the young lady's mother?" Kaltz confirmed, "Yes, that's the child. She lost her mother very early. In fact, it was I, her father, who needed her care more." Kaltz's eyes grew dim. "She was my most precious treasure. I only wanted to give her the most valuable things in the world. But what she wanted was never anything valuable or beautiful." A memory surfaced. Liefried handed a small flower to Kaltz's daughter. She took it shyly, a blush spreading across her face. Kaltz's voice trembled slightly. What she wanted were always those insignificant, ordinary things. I forced her to accept what I thought was best. I once thought that was love. His daughter clutched Kaltz's sleeve tightly. Lightning flashed outside the window. "Father, I love Liefried. I'm begging you, please save him. Please." Kaltz looked at her, his face expressionless. "You're still saying such things. You have no evidence to clear Liefried's name. If we help him escape, we will also be branded as traitors. As compensation for acquiescing to his execution, I have promised you the position of crown princess. Forget Liefried." Kaltz turned away resolutely. His daughter collapsed to the floor. "I was so foolish. Father, no." She clutched her abdomen tightly. "Please." He didn't even know that his own bloodline was growing in his daughter's womb. That child, who had always been so obedient, ultimately chose to leave me to protect that tiny, precious life. Kaltz's back looked incredibly lonely. It was only then that I understood. I wasn't living for my child, but for my own selfish desires. He clenched his fists tightly, his knuckles turning white from the force. I don't know how many years passed. That child returned with Rachel, gravely ill. Kaltz lowered his head, overwhelmed by regret. If I had respected her wishes back then, if I hadn't let her leave, that terrible illness might not have taken her life. Vivian listened quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Kaltz's voice was heavy. "To this day, I still regret it." He bowed his head deeply, the light from the window outlining his sorrowful silhouette. Vivian's fingers fidgeted restlessly. The young lady's mother must have hated being forced, too. But aren't all fathers like that? Kaltz's shoulders trembled slightly as he sank deeper into silence. Vivian recalled her own father. Even if I didn't want to take my medicine, he would force me to take it, to keep me from getting sick. He also wouldn't let me climb trees, afraid I would get hurt. Vivian sat properly on the sofa. Despite all that, I still love my father very much. A warm blush appeared on her face. "I know it's because he loves me," Vivian said softly. "So, the young lady's mother must have loved the Duke very much too." Kaltz's eyes grew dim. Vivian continued, "If the person you loved was trapped in the past, you'd be sad too." His gaze sank into the abyss of memory. "I used to resent my father very much. Even now, I can't say I've completely forgiven him." The scene flashes back. Kaltz sat by his daughter's bedside, looking at her pale face. He murmured in a low voice, "I'm sorry, Isella." He tightly gripped his daughter's cold hand. "But now that I'm a parent, I understand." His daughter's voice echoed in Kaltz's mind. "Father, you had no choice back then. So please, forgive yourself for what you did." Kaltz closed his eyes, tears streaming down. Yes, sunlight pierced through the clouds. A bird flapped its wings and flew high, a feather drifting lightly in the air. It's time to let go. It's time to send that child off. A paintbrush was slammed onto the table. It broke with a crisp snap. Sally ran off in a huff. This is so annoying. What on earth is Mom doing? I thought she would find a way to kick that girl out. Why is that girl spending more and more time at the mansion? Sally gritted her teeth. Her cheeks were flushed with anger. She turned towards the door. I'm gonna get something to eat. Men. The hallway was empty, with only Sally's echo. Huh. She slammed the door open. This is so annoying. Now even the maids dare to ignore me. They used to come as soon as I called. Sally stormed out of the room in a rage, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. She stopped abruptly. Huh. Coutts was holding Vivian's hand, walking slowly from the other end of the corridor. Sally hid behind a door, peeking. That girl is Vivian, right? She's with the Duke today. I've read that book. Why is she coming out of the Duke's study? What? That girl has even managed to deceive the Duke? Vivian. Coutts turned and left. Sally watched this scene through the crack in the door. I can't leave this to Mom. Before it's too late, I have to get that girl out of here myself. Sally clenched her fists, a resolute fire burning in her eyes. Coutts's gaze fell on Margaret. Margaret, why are you scolding this child? Margaret trembled. Your Grace. She went into the young lady's room alone and stole something. So I was questioning her. Coutts's gaze was devoid of warmth. Is there any proof? Vivian clutched her skirt tightly, her body trembling slightly. Coutts's tone was stern. You wouldn't interrogate a child based on suspicion alone, would you? Sally immediately stepped forward and handed him the hair clip. Please look. This is the young lady's hair clip found in her bag. Coutts took the hair clip and turned to Vivian. Vivian, did you really steal it? No matter how I think about it, I can't find a way to prove my innocence. The only thing I can do is plead my case to say I didn't do it. Rachel suddenly stepped in front of Vivian. I gave it to her. Vivian's eyes widened. Rachel, she actually stood up for me. Rachel's voice was quiet but firm. I didn't know I needed a nanny's permission to give my own things to a friend. Margaret forced a stiff smile. Miss, covering for a mistake doesn't make one a good friend. A true friend should point out the other's faults. Rachel looked up, her eyes clear. A true friend is someone who chooses to believe and help their friends when they are wrongly accused. Vivian recalled Rachel's words in her mind. When a friend is wrongly accused, you shouldn't run away. You should believe in them and help them. Right, Rachel? Rachel tightly gripped Vivian's hand. A flash of surprise crossed Vivian's eyes. Margaret pointed at the scattered paper flowers on the floor, her voice sharp as she questioned, What is this? Why were you carrying these things with you? Rachel lowered her head, her voice as soft as a whisper. Those are the flowers we made together. We wanted to give them to Mother. I put them in my bag, wanting to secretly take them to the hallway. Margaret's voice held a hint of reproach. Rachel, if only you had said so earlier. Coutts's expression turned serious. Today? Why not tomorrow? Rachel lowered her gaze. Because grandfather might not be happy. Coutts fell silent, the lines on his face tense. Owen said, It seems Vivian's name has been cleared. Everyone, return to your positions. He then turned to Sally, his tone icy. Sally, you nearly framed Vivian. Apologize properly. Sally's face turned beet red, her jaw clenched. She abruptly turned and rushed out of the room. Margaret cried out in alarm. Sally, if they truly wanted to apologize, they wouldn't have framed me in the first place. Rachel grabbed Vivian's wrist. Vivian froze. Rachel's voice was steady. Let's go. You should have gone home long ago. She pulled Vivian, who turned to leave with her. Vivian followed, somewhat dazed. Okay. Vivian suddenly cried out, wait a minute. Vivian knelt on the floor, picking up the scattered paper flowers. Rachel hurried forward. Vivian. Rachel knelt down, cupping Vivian's face. What are you doing now? We promised to give these to Mother. Let's go pick out some proper gifts. Vivian gently pushed Rachel's hand away. It's okay. You can go. The paper flowers slipped from her hand. Rachel's sincerity shouldn't be so humbled. Vivian watched her friends departing back, a sharp pain in her heart. Coutts spoke gently, Rachel. Would you like to go to the back garden together tomorrow? Vivian, you come too. Vivian and Rachel turned around at the same time. Their faces were filled with surprise. The next day, sunlight filled the courtyard. Coutts led Vivian and Rachel to stand quietly before a tombstone. Vivian placed a bouquet of paper flowers in front of it. These are the flowers I sell alike. She looked down at the flowers she had made by hand, her eyes gentle and sad. Coutts looked at Vivian and Rachel, understanding dawning on him. The person who told Vivian about these flowers was probably Rachel, a child who could remember what Isella liked. He must have really wanted to come and see his mother's grave. A flicker of memory passed through Coutts's eyes. Only now did I understand. I'm such a fool. He looked at Vivian kneeling on the ground. He was startled. He jerked his head up. Rachel lowered her head, her cheeks flushed. If it weren't for Rachel, that child, Isella, you to save him, would have ended up like this. Rachel trembled all over, her hands clasped tightly, tears welling up in her eyes. She sobbed and choked, as if she could hear her grandfather's cries. Coutts called out softly, "Rachel." Rachel looked up. Coutts looked at her with gentle eyes. "Your mother would be happy to see you too." He turned his head, a hint of regret in his voice. "If I had known, I should have brought you here sooner. I thought you were afraid of me. That was just my excuse." Coutts's fingers gently brushed the tombstone. "The truth is, I was too cowardly. I didn't have the courage to face you." Coutts's voice was heavy. "Every time I see you, I suffocate from the thought that I caused your mother's death. I've regretted it my whole life. You shouldn't have sent your mother away like that. But now I finally understand." Coutts suddenly knelt down. "That regret is already too late. If I let this moment slip away again, I will surely regret leaving you all alone back then. I'm sorry." Rachel's head shot up, her eyes trembling. This foolish grandfather understood too late. Rachel looked at Vivian, her thoughts in a jumble. What should I say? Are these the words I've always wanted to hear? Or should I be angry? Rachel lowered her head, clutching the hem of her clothes tightly. "I don't know." Cal called out softly, "Rachel." Vivian turned her head sharply, her long hair tracing an arc in the air. On Coutts's face was a sorrow and relief never seen before. Vivian looked at the two of them. "The young lady probably doesn't hate the Duke. It's like when I fight with my dad. After we make up, it's awkward for a while." Coutts's gaze was lowered, silent. Vivian's voice was low. "The young lady has been hurt for too long, so she needs more time to heal." Vivian looked up, her eyes shining with anticipation. "But you'll wait for her, right?" Coutts didn't hesitate. "Of course." Her eyes were firm. "No matter how long it takes. As long as she needs." Vivian broke into a brilliant smile. "Then I'll wait with you." Coutts was stunned. "Together?" Vivian smiled brightly. She pointed ahead. First, go see the young lady." Vivian started walking towards Rachel. Coutts stopped and looked down at his daughter, his gaze complicated. Coutts stood alone before the tombstone, his back a solitary figure. "Take care, Isella. We'll be all right, too." Sunlight streamed through the high windows, filling the magnificent library. Bookshelves lined the walls, and dust motes danced in the beams of light. Vivian stopped. She heard something. Vivian called out softly, "Rachel." She saw a small figure, curled up in the shadow of a bookshelf. Vivian walked over quickly and knelt down. "So you're here." Rachel looked up. Her eyes were brimming with tears. Vivian looked at her gently. "Did you run away because you were shy?" Rachel was silent, her body trembling slightly. Vivian continued to press. "Or is it because you hate the Duke? If I knew how you felt, maybe I could help." Friends should share their true feelings with each other. Rachel lowered her head, burying her face in her collar. "My true feelings?" She looked up, her eyes filled with confusion. "Actually," Vivian gazed at Rachel, waiting for her answer. "I'm not really sure how I feel either." Rachel hugged herself tightly. "I don't know if I'm happy or sad. I don't understand my own heart. I don't know how to treat. Grandpa, this unstable me. Can you still understand me?" A smile touched Vivian's lips. "Of course. I'll stay by your side until you figure out your feelings. When you cry, I'll comfort you. When you laugh, I'll laugh with you. When you're angry, I'll be angry with you too, because I'm always on your side." Rachel's eyes grew moist. "Vivian, I like you. I like you very much." 2 months have passed since the anniversary of Rachel's mother's death. A lot has happened between us since then. A downpour washed over the world outside the window. Rachel took me to the mansion's underground magic training ground and showed me the magical abilities she had been hiding. Cold magical energy surged from Rachel's hands. Vivian covered her mouth in surprise, her eyes filled with shock. She also told me that she has a special constitution that allows her to absorb the magical energy around her. Although I already knew all of this from the original story, my heart was still filled with immense joy. Vivian smiled brightly, because this meant that Rachel trusted me even more. However, a strange change also occurred. Rachel sat on the sofa, looking at me with worried eyes. "Vivian, do you really hate boys?" Vivian answered without hesitation, "Yes, I hate boys. I only want to play with you, Rachel." Could it be? Is Rachel afraid that I'll marry some boy in the future and leave her? Rachel remained silent, just looking at me quietly. Vivian clenched her small fists. "I won't play with boys, and I won't hold their hands. So don't worry, Rachel." For some reason, Rachel seemed a little confused by my vow, but she didn't ask any more questions after that. She must have been reassured. And after that day, the biggest change was, Owen stood before a magnificent door and raised his hand to knock. The door slowly opened. Owen stood at the door. Miss Rachel, the Duke would like to invite you for afternoon tea. He turned to the other girl. And you as well, of course, Vivian. Rachel nodded slightly. I'll be right there. Please get things ready. The Duke and Rachel's relationship was improving. Rachel also seemed to be gradually finding a sense of stability. She no longer avoided the Duke, and her guard was down. Most importantly, she now looked like a child who truly had someone to rely on. Vivian looked at Rachel beside her, a wave of warmth washing over her heart. That's great. Vivian's eyes flew open. A buzzing sound entered her ears. She and Rachel both looked out the window at the same time. There's a buzzing sound. Where is it coming from? Vivian walked quickly to the window. The mist blurred her vision. That's the Western Forest. Adults were forbidden from entering the Western Forest because magical beasts often appeared there. Vivian's steps faltered. I feel like something is calling me. Rachel noticed her strange behavior. Vivian, what are you looking at? Vivian snapped back to her senses. It's nothing. Let's go. She took Rachel's hand and walked forward quickly. Was it my imagination? Vivian and Rachel walked down the long corridor. Even if someone was really calling from the forest, I wouldn't be able to hear it over the sound of the rain from here. The rain pattered. Outside the window, the downpour was torrential. Purple lightning split the night sky. Vivian and Rachel walked into the room. Duke, you were looking for us? Count sat at the table with his back to them. He spoke slowly. It looks ominous. I think I'll have you leave after the rain stops. Seat. Vivian replied, yes. His eyes swept over the two children, as if confirming something. Vivian and Rachel sat down. The atmosphere was a bit stagnant. What's wrong? Oh, Vivian hastily pulled her hand back. Is it too presumptuous to hold hands in front of the Duke? Kautz's gaze fell on the table. Why is he still staring even though I let go? He broke the silence. There's certainly a lot of rain in the south. Vivian asked curiously, does it rarely rain in the north, even in summer? Kautz replied, not this much. It's a different feeling from the north. There's no atmosphere, but the villagers probably don't like summer. Vivian looked out the window. I like rainy days too. I can sleep while listening to the sound of the rain, but I hope it doesn't rain during the festival. Vivian's gaze drifted to the window, where raindrops tapped against the glass. Kautz turned to the side. Festival? Vivian explained, yes. In 2 weeks, there's the summer festival. It's held every year. Vivian raised her hands above her head, mimicking a magical beast, her eyes smiling into crescents. People dress up as magical beasts or ghosts, and they sell a lot of delicious food. That's why I like it. Kautz's eyes lit up. Ghost costumes sound interesting. So, on the day of the festival, can I go look around with Rachel? She cupped her chin with her hands, looking at the Duke with expectant eyes. Kautz leaned back slightly. Is this what Rachel wants to do too? Vivian immediately nodded. Of course. She said she wants to go too. The Duke's voice held a hint of scrutiny. It's not because you pestered her until she reluctantly agreed, is it? Vivian flinched, her cheeks turning red. How'd he know? I was the one who pestered Rachel to go together. All right, let me go. Vivian quickly waved her hands. No, that's not it. Rachel's tone was firm. I wanted to go myself. Kautz pondered for a moment. Is that so? Then go and have fun. Vivian raised her hands high, cheering joyfully. The Duke is the best. Kautz's face was expressionless. You're just good with sweet talk. His tone shifted. By the way, Vivian, you said your father is a chef at a bakery. I happen to need an assistant. I'm considering hiring your father. Vivian's fists clenched, her voice trembling slightly. My dad is a chef's assistant? The Duke added yes. Provided he's willing, of course. Vivian's golden eyes widened slightly. The Edwin family can hire any number of assistants. This means he thinks highly of me. If Dad becomes a servant of the Edwin family, we won't have to shuttle back and forth between home and a villa. Most importantly, gold coins clinked, sparkling with a tempting light. The salary of a Duke's servant would be much higher than the income from the bakery. This is an excellent opportunity. But Vivian took a deep breath. Thank you very much for your consideration, but I think I must decline this offer. Kautz's eyebrows twitched. The reason? Vivian lowered her head, poking her cheek nervously with her finger. Although it's a bit embarrassing for me to say, my dad has no talent for baking or cooking whatsoever. No matter how greedy I am for fame and fortune, I still have a conscience. The Duke spread his hands. Are you sure you're not being modest? If you were a daughter who loves her father, especially in front of outsiders, wouldn't you be proud of him? Kautz let out a soft laugh. I expected you to refuse, but I didn't expect this to be the reason. Looking at it from another angle, this actually makes me want to try your father's bread even more. If you saw the bread my dad makes with your own eyes, you wouldn't say that. Kautz pressed on. So, does your father have any other hobbies or talents? Vivian blinked. What Dad is good at is. That evening, Vivian's pupils quaked. What on earth is this? A row of blue dough sat on the baking sheet, emitting a strange aura. Here, Vivian, have a taste. Vivian recoiled in horror. What is this stuff? Her father accepted it with a proud look. What do you mean? This is a new product I spent days developing. No, I know it's bread, but what on earth did you put in it? Why is the bread blue? Her father explained. I made it with herbs, but I thought plain bread was too boring, so I added a little food coloring. Go on, try it. Blue is the most unappetizing color, and he actually used it to make bread. Vivian closed her eyes and took a bite as if facing death. He said he made it with herbs. Her father leaned in expectantly. How is it, Vivian? Is it delicious? Vivian's face turned pale, a strange blue liquid trickling from the corner of her mouth. This taste, if it weren't good for my health, I would have lost my temper by now. It's over. Our bakery is doomed. Dad can only rely on his looks to get by. Vivian looked at her father's smiling face, her heart wavering. Did I say too much? I should at least try one. She picked up a piece of blue bread. Dad, do you want to go to the Edelwin estate? The Duke said he wants to hire you as a servant. Her father was stunned. The Duke? Vivian nodded. Yeah, what do you think? Her father took off his glasses, his expression turning serious. No, I'm not going to the Edelwin estate. Vivian pressed eagerly. What? Why? You can earn much more money there than you do now. Vivian held the blue bread, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. We could live in a big mansion. Her father lowered his gaze, his voice low. I don't want to be controlled by anyone. That kind of work is boring and terrible. Besides, her father's eyes turned cold, a dangerous glint in them. Her father hugged Vivian tightly. I prefer living with just my princess. Doesn't the princess like it? Vivian buried her face in her father's chest. No, I like being with you too, Dad. It's just that I see how hard you work. Her father gently stroked her hair. Is that so? My daughter knows how to care for her dad now. You've really grown up. His tone shifted. By the way, you haven't had dinner yet, have you? I made soup. Let's eat together. Her father turned and walked towards the kitchen. Vivian followed behind him. Okay, what kind of soup is it? Her father smiled proudly. I had some herbs left over from making the bread, so I just threw them in. Vivian's face turned pale. You put herbs in the soup too? Her father scooped Vivian up. Let's go. Vivian, I'm doomed. At the dinner table, her father looked lovingly at Vivian. Vivi, what did you learn at the Duke's house today? Vivian held a spoon, stirring the soup with floating green leaves. Her eyes were vacant. Vivian replied expressionlessly, I had a history lesson. I feel like I'm used to taste now. Her father put down his cup. Really? Then what was the most impressive thing from today's lesson? Vivian hesitated. She suddenly looked up, her eyes shining. Damn sweet. Her father suddenly started coughing violently, his body trembling. Vivian stood up in alarm. Dad, what's wrong? Are you okay? She went around the table. Quick, drink some water. Vivian picked up the water pitcher and hurriedly poured water for her father. The water flowed into the cup and also spilled onto the table. Vivian asked with concern, Are you feeling better now? Her father took the cup. Yes, thanks to you, princess. But Dad, do you know that person too? Her father's eyes darted away. Yes, he's quite famous, after all. Vivian was thoughtful. That's true. Dad is from the Empire, so it's impossible for him not to know. He's a very famous. Her eyes shone with admiration. An amazing person. In this world, there exists a race entirely different from humans, the demon race. They are few in number, but each is a master of magic, and they use this power to wantonly plunder from humans. The conflict between humans and demons never ceased. However, everything changed 10 years ago. The emperor at the time could not bear to see his people suffer and decided to launch an expedition against the demon world. And the vanguard leading this expedition was the youngest sword master in the empire's history, a peerless genius. The commander of the empire's Second Night Order, Danlesweet. It was he who led the army to invade the demon world. He led the imperial army and, even on unfavorable terrain, achieved a continuous string of victories. In the end, he was ambushed by the demon race. He was in a desperate situation. His subordinates cried out from the cliff, Commander! He ordered all his subordinates to retreat, staying behind alone to fight the demons. In the end, he died in battle. Since his body was never found, he was officially recorded as missing in action. After that, the demons' invasions and plundering temporarily subsided for a while. Vivian rested her chin on her hands, a look of enchantment on her face. So the people of the Empire all call him a hero and commemorate him. Her father asked gently, So, my princess, what were your thoughts while learning about his deeds? Vivian lowered her head and thought, I'm only 9 years old. I should be worshipping heroes, right? She suddenly raised her hand. He's so cool. Her father looked confused. Cool? Vivian nodded vigorously. Yes, he's so strong he could defeat all the bad guys by himself. Vivian waved her arms excitedly. He's very brave. He would sacrifice himself to save his subordinates. Her father called out softly, Vivian, that person might not be that amazing. Vivian was stunned. Why? Her father explained, history is written by the victors, so it's always biased in their favor. Maybe the demons were the good guys, and he was the bad guy. People are just lying. Because he's human, everyone just takes his side. Just like there are good people and bad people, there are also kind demons. I just don't want you to hate kind demons just because of history written by humans. Her father's movements paused. He turned away. I met one before the gate to the demon world closed. Vivian looked up. Dad, have you met a kind demon? It closed 6 years ago. Was it before that? They say the demon king sealed the demon world. Her father's eyes grew distant. At that time, I only believed the history I had learned, so I thought he was a bad person. Then I regretted it. He looked at his daughter gently. So, I hope my princess doesn't end up with regrets like me. Vivian nodded vigorously. Are you talking about that kind demon? She clenched her fists, her eyes determined. Okay, Dad, I'll judge for myself whether a person is good or bad. Her father affectionately pinched Vivian's cheek. Whose daughter is so smart and kind? Vivian's eyes crinkled into a smile. Is it because I'm Mom's daughter? Her father couldn't help but laugh. What? Haha. The night sky was dotted with stars. Her father pushed open the door. Vivian, are you getting ready for bed? Vivian was leaning on the windowsill, gazing at the brilliant starry sky. Her father asked softly, what's wrong? Is there something outside the window? Vivian turned around abruptly. No, it's nothing. She lowered her head, her expression clearly hiding something. Vivian is always like this. She's afraid of worrying me, so she hides things. Her father walked forward and gently picked up his daughter. Dad, he held Vivian in his arms. Hurry up and tell me, or my arms are going to break. What is it? Vivian answered in a small voice. It's really nothing. Her father gazed at her gently. If it's nothing, then there's even less reason to hide it, right? Princess, Vivian finally spoke. It's really nothing. It might sound strange, but I feel like the forest has been calling me. Her father carried her to the window. The forest? You mean the western forest? Yes. He pressed. Who? Did you hear a voice? No, not a person. I just feel like the forest itself is calling. Her father repeated her words. The forest. Vivian leaned on his shoulder. It's strange, right? Her father held his daughter, looking out at the deep forest beyond the window, lost in thought. Her father's tone held a hint of exasperation. It's not because I told you not to go that you're now determined to go, is it? Vivian struggled in his arms. Of course not, Dad. You said there are scary monsters there. I never thought of going there. Her father placed her by the bed, his tone becoming serious. Right? So you absolutely must not go into the forest. Understand? Vivian yawned, muttering softly. Her father gently placed his daughter on the pillow. My princess should be sleeping now. He tucked the sleeping Vivian in and quietly stood guard by the bed. Vivian answered softly. Her father leaned down and planted a kiss on his daughter's forehead. Sweet dreams. Vivian. Her father stared at the night sky outside the window. Did something happen in the forest? His brow furrowed. It's been quiet lately, but before the Emperor's men were always searching in the woods. Cloaked messengers gathered in the forest. They searched for the weak boundaries scattered throughout the empire, the rifts leading to the demon world. The protection of the people recorded in history books was nothing but a lie Vivian read. The Emperor's eyes glinted with fanaticism. He held a beating purple heart in his hands, blood dripping through his fingers. The real purpose was to go to the demon world and seize the demon king's heart. Unlike humans, every member of the demon race was born powerful and able to wield magic. Legend has it that the heart of their king, the demon king, is a massive core of condensed magic. The Emperor's inferiority complex towards Liefried made him obsessed with power. He coveted the demon king's heart. This was perhaps an inevitable outcome. I thought he had given up after the gate to the demon world closed. Has he still not let go of that obsession? Her father turned, his gaze falling on the calendar on the wall. Speaking of which, the 7th. His eyes sharpened abruptly, a glint of determination flashing in his pupils. The summer festival was circled on the calendar. He must be looking forward to it. The last time I went to the forest was in March, just a few days before Duke Edelwin came here. Her father's finger flipped through the calendar, stopping on the 14th. Her father was lost in thought, his fingers unconsciously stroking the ribbon of his clothes. Moonlight filled the courtyard. He gazed into the distance. It's time to go and check. Margaret trembled all over, her back against the cold door. The letter in her hand shook violently, letting out a silent wail. The words on the paper were like a brand, searing her eyes. Those who hide the traitor's daughter will face the ultimate punishment, death. Someone knows Rachel is a boy. Margaret leaned against the door, her body trembling uncontrollably, and the threat in the letter was crystal clear. Sally leaked the secret. If you don't come to the inn, the Duke will find out. Your daughter leaked the young lady's secret. I knew Sally's previous attitude was suspicious. Sally looked up and questioned her mother. Mom, when on earth are you going to kick him out? Her mother wearily pressed her temples, a hint of impatience in her voice. Just wait a little longer. Mom will find a chance. Sally stomped her foot. How long do I have to wait? If this goes on, that thing is going to marry Rachel. Margaret spun around abruptly. Sally, she was furious. Didn't I tell you never to mention that matter casually? Sally's eyes were filled with terror and grievance. But I was angry for a moment and couldn't hold it in. Margaret bent down, her voice pressed low. Once that matter is known to others, we will all die. Do you understand? Sally's whole body stiffened, only able to squeeze out a faint whimper from her throat. Margaret's brow furrowed. Could it be you? A maid came running from the other end of the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the empty mansion. Nanny, Margaret turned. What is it? A maid hurried forward and handed her a letter. A man asked me to give this to you. Margaret took the letter, her face instantly darkening. Now even Sally is involved. Margaret gritted her teeth, her hands tearing the letter to shreds. I must go see that man immediately. Night enveloped the inn, its wooden sign blurry under the starlight. Margaret pulled down her bonnet. She hurried up the stairs, her breath coming in short gasps. She stopped before a door, her palm pressed against the cold wood. Is this the place? A deep voice came from within the door. Come in. Margaret's fingers curled slightly. In the end, she pushed the door open. The door opened slowly. A man in a white cloak stood with his back to her, facing the window. He turned his head. How had the past few months in the countryside been? Margaret's pupils constricted. It was a man, the Emperor's inspector who had visited the villa a few months ago. A chill ran through Margaret. If he was here, then the Emperor also knew Rachel's secret. Her legs gave way, and she fell heavily to her knees. Please, spare me. Margaret prostrated herself at the inspector's feet. I would never dare to deceive His Majesty. I just wanted to raise my daughter, who lost her father so early. The inspector's voice was devoid of emotion. I'm not here to listen to your grievances. His Majesty wishes for this matter to be handled quietly. The inspector's gaze sharpened, as if it could pierce her soul. Margaret trembled all over, cold sweat soaking her forehead. Handled quietly. The inspector's voice was like a cold verdict. The young lady who went to the countryside with her maternal grandfather to recuperate died in an unfortunate accident. That is the script His Majesty desires. The inspector slowly crouched down, leveling his gaze with Margaret's. Let me ask you a question. He leaned close to Margaret's face, his voice laced with a cruel smile. A traitor who hides the son of a traitor. How can she possibly survive? The sun was dazzling. The sky was a brilliant, clear blue. A carriage rolled over the cobblestone road and stopped by the fountain square. It was a quiet country town. Vivian stood before a closed door, a closed for business sign hanging on it. She clasped her hands behind her back, seemingly waiting for something. I, Vivian, am a mature 9-year-old who understands the hardships of parenting. Dad sometimes wants a break from raising a child to go out with his friends. I can be magnanimous and completely understand that. Vivian watched her father board the carriage. But why now of all times? The festival is only a few days away. The new bread is a huge hit. This is the time to make a fortune. Vivian clenched her fists tightly, her teeth grinding. You're going to see a friend? Her father asked. Vivian, you know my friend, Uncle Max, right? Vivian nodded. MHM. Although I've never met him. Her father clasped his hands, his expression grave. This time, it's the wife of Max's father's cousin who passed away. So I have to go. Vivian's face froze instantly. Isn't that just a stranger? But he had promised to be back on the last day of the festival. Vivian trudged heavily toward the carriage where her father was holding his luggage. Dad's leaving now. He gently stroked Vivian's head. Don't pout and complain, mortal. Remember to wash your hands after playing. And don't forget to brush your teeth before bed, okay? Vivian stared at him intently. You too. Don't drink too much. Don't wander around aimlessly. And definitely don't go near any scary-looking men. You hear me? Her father was taken aback for a moment. Then his eyes crinkled into a smile. My goodness, who's the daughter and who's the dad here? So bold. He leaned down and replied with mock solemnity, As you command, my lady daughter. I will be good and return safely. Her father gently pinched Vivian's cheek. Get along well with the young lady while I'm gone. Her father waved goodbye to Owen. Sorry to trouble you like this. Please take good care of Vivian. Owen bowed slightly, placing a hand on his chest. Not at all. It was the young lady's wish. While Dad's away, I've decided to stay at Rachel's house. Owen extended his hand. Miss Vivian, shall we go? Vivian lifted her skirt and trotted to keep up. Yes, butler. I was originally planning to stay at the general store, but Rachel sat on the sofa. So you're going to stay at the general store for now? Will that boy be there too? Vivian asked curiously. That boy, Peter? Vivian picked up a pastry. I think so. The general store is Peter's home. Rachel immediately shook his head. No, you can't. Vivian, biting into her pastry, looked completely confused. Huh? Why not? Rachel lowered his head, fiddling with his fingers nervously. Boys and girls, I heard they can't sleep together after the age of 8. Vivian explained breezily, Don't worry. We won't sleep together. Peter will sleep in his room, and I'll sleep in the guest room. Rachel still shook his head stubbornly. Still no. That boy. Vivian suddenly moved close to Rachel and grabbed his shoulders. All right, a sly smile appeared on her face. You're just jealous, aren't you? Jealous that Peter and I are getting closer, right? Vivian smiled, reassuring Rachel. Don't worry, you're still my favorite. Rachel's cheeks flushed red as he stammered a rebuttal. That's not at all. He stood up abruptly. Then, why don't you stay here? Vivian was stunned. Stay here? In the villa? Rachel turned his head away, not daring to look at her. Yes, there are plenty of guest rooms here. Now that he mentioned it, no need to travel by carriage. It's safe here, and a friend is here too. It really is the perfect environment to leave a child in. And so, I moved into the ducal mansion. Vivian leaned out of the carriage window, waving both hands. Dad, have a safe trip. Her father stood in place, waving back. Goodbye, Vivian. Vivian knelt on the bed, excitedly shaking Rachel. We can play all night for a few days, right? We can even have a pillow fight. I'm so excited. It's my first time having a sleepover at a friend's house. A carriage drove through the bustling streets. Night fell. A game piece was placed on the board with a crisp sound. Vivian let out a big yawn, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. Rachel stood up. I'm going back to my room. Vivian looked surprised. What? You're not sleeping here? Rachel pointed at the room. This is your room. Vivian said, Usually when you have a sleepover at a friend's house, you sleep together. Rachel looked down and shook his head. Sleeping together before marriage is against etiquette. Vivian leaned forward, her gaze locked on the chessboard. But that's for boys and girls, right? She looked up. We're both girls, so why not? Rachel flatly refused. No. He stood up abruptly. Vivian looked bewildered. Rachel? Rachel gripped the doorknob and looked back. We're really not sleeping together? Not even for a few days? Vivian clasped her hands together, her eyes shimmering with tears. Once my doting dad comes back, sleepovers will be impossible. This might be our first and last time. After a moment of silence, Rachel uttered a single word. No. Vivian was completely stunned. Rachel's voice came from outside the door. Good night, Vivian. The door slammed shut. Vivian stood frozen. Wait, then why did you ask me to stay at the villa in the first place? She flopped onto the bed in a huff. TCH, that idiot Rachel. Vivian buried her face in the pillow. The soft bed was quite comfortable, though. If I close my eyes, I should be able to fall asleep soon. The night deepened. A faint voice echoed in the room. Good night, Vivi. Vivian's eyes snapped open, her golden pupils gleaming in the dark. It's back. That voice is calling me again. Vivian shot up in bed, her gaze sweeping warily across the empty bedroom. This time, the voice was coming from the forest again. Vivian rushed to the window, her bare feet padding on the floor, making urgent sounds. She was captivated by a strange sight. Purple motes of light swirled and danced before her eyes. Who are you? Why do you keep calling me? Outside the window, there was only silence, the night wind rustling the treetops. There was no response. Am I going crazy? A shiver ran through Vivian, and cold sweat trickled down from her temple. If I'm not crazy, there must be a ghost or a demon. Vivian hugged herself tightly. Only I can hear that voice. She trembled all over, fear seizing her heart. Vivian curled up in the corner of the bed, burying her face in her knees. Dad, the light at the end of the hallway flickered, casting shadows on the ornate reliefs on the wall. Vivian tiptoed over and knocked on a closed door. She called out softly, "Rachel? Are you there?" Vivian hugged her pillow, her expression downcast. Maybe he's already asleep. The door creaked open. Rachel stood behind it, looking at her in confusion. "What do you want?" Vivian's voice trembled. "Rachel, I can't sleep alone. Can I sleep with you?" Rachel looked at her in silence. After a moment, he stepped aside. "Come in." Rachel took Vivian's hand and led her into his room. In the cold hallway, only their footsteps remained. Vivian clumsily climbed into bed. Rachel placed the table lamp on the nightstand. Vivian snuggled under the covers and asked cautiously, "Can we leave the light on?" Rachel picked up a book. "I'm going to read for a while before sleeping. You go ahead and sleep." "Oh, so that's why. He's leaving the light on because he's afraid I'm scared." Vivian lay in bed, secretly watching Rachel sitting beside her. He's such a considerate person. A moment ago, I was filled with fear. Now, my heart feels like it's filled with soft cotton candy. Vivian gazed at Rachel's focused profile. If it's Rachel, maybe I can be honest about my situation. She mustered her courage and spoke. Rachel, Vivian said softly, "I feel like something has been calling me." Rachel's gaze lifted from the pages of his book. "Something is calling you?" Vivian's voice was tinged with fear. "Yes, but only I can sense it, so I'm scared. I'm not crazy, right?" Rachel closed his book, his tone calm. "You are indeed a strange child, but—" Vivian sat up abruptly. "What?" Rachel's eyes were gentle. "It's not because you're strange. On the contrary, it's because you're special." Vivian was stunned. "Special?" Rachel continued to explain. "Exorcists can often hear the voices of spirits. Some summoners can, too." Vivian's eyes lit up. "All right, there are people like that. So you're saying, I'm not crazy, but I have a special ability?" Rachel looked up at her. "Can you hear it now?" Vivian shook her head. "No, but when it gets quiet, I'm afraid I'll hear it again." She asked hopefully, "Can you talk to me until I fall asleep?" Rachel fell into thought. After a moment, he lowered his gaze. "I don't have much to say." Vivian's expression fell. "Was I too forward?" "Right. Rachel isn't a talkative person to begin with." A soft humming sound began, like falling petals, like flowing notes. Lying in bed, Vivian was drawn in by the sudden melody. A humming sound. What song is this?" Rachel explained softly, "It's a lullaby my mother used to sing, but I can't remember the lyrics." He asked, a little uncertainly, "Does it not sound good?" Vivian immediately retorted, "No, it's beautiful. Your voice is beautiful, too." Rachel's cheeks flushed slightly. "You really think everything is beautiful?" Vivian smiled and said, "Because it is beautiful. A voice can't be seen. So is beautiful not the right word to describe it?" Vivian's cheeks flushed slightly. Even though I can't see it, I can feel it. Your voice is like the wind blowing through a summer forest, like the sound of rustling leaves. It's beautiful. At first, the voice sounds cold and distant, but it's also like leaves willing to sway in the wind, incredibly gentle. That voice was like a sedative, smoothing her furrowed brow. All the nightmares faded away. Vivian's breathing gradually became steady and even as she fell asleep. Rachel watched her quietly. "What was that?" Vivian's eyelids fluttered. "Maybe I feel at ease now." Suddenly, she felt so sleepy. Drowsiness washed over her like a tide. She sank into dreamland. Rachel gazed into the night. "I should have told her before she fell asleep." Vivian murmured softly in her sleep, "Thank you, Rach." Rachel sat quietly by the bed, gazing at Vivian's peaceful, sleeping face. A hint of tenderness appeared in his eyes. "Good night, Vivian." The night was like water, the starlight brilliant. The melody of the lullaby faded into the silence. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting dappled light and shadows. Birds chirped on the branches. Count adjusted his cravat and instructed the butler, "While I'm away, please take care of the estate." "And Rachel?" The butler bowed. "Of course, Your Grace." The butler suggested tentatively, "Forgive my impertinence, but have you considered returning early to spend more time with the young lady?" Count turned and asked, "Are Vivian and Rachel awake?" The butler replied with a smile, "Miss Vivian went to the young lady's room. It seems the two of them slept together. They probably aren't awake yet." Count showed a gratified smile. "It's best this old man doesn't disturb them." especially young Lady Rachel. The butler paused in his steps. Oh, have you already accepted her as your future granddaughter-in-law? Coutts was slightly startled. Coutts was silent for a moment, then turned to leave. I'm going. The butler followed behind him. If the two young ladies fall in love in the future, I won't mind their difference in status. But more important than that, Coutts's footsteps echoed in the long corridor. He stopped, his back heavy. To the outside world, Rachel is a girl. The butler's voice echoed in Coutts's mind. Is it really all right to let that child face such a dangerous world? Coutts walked down the stairs, his steps steady. He took a deep breath. There's no need to worry yet. Nothing has been decided. The maids bowed. Your Grace. Coutts was about to take a step, but he stopped abruptly. The sound of hurried footsteps came from the stairs. Vivian and Rachel ran down quickly. Vivian stood on the stairs, a hint of worry on her face. Your Grace, have a safe journey. Coutts's gaze fell on Rachel. Have a safe journey. Grandfather. Coutts stiffened slightly, then a gentle smile appeared. Do you two need anything? I want something to eat. Vivian and Rachel glanced at each other. Rachel shook his head gently. No. Vivian suddenly spoke up. Then I want dessert. Coutts looked at her. Dessert? Vivian's eyes were firm. Yes. I want to try the most famous and delicious dessert from the capital. Coutts murmured softly, I'll see what I can do. He reached out and gently stroked Vivian's hair. Vivian closed her eyes happily, enjoying the moment of tenderness. Coutts's gaze softened. She's so much like Isella. He turned to Rachel again. Rachel, are you sure you don't need anything? Rachel looked up. Then, please buy me some more books. Books, Coutts repeated. Rachel's gaze was earnest. Yes, grandfather. The kind you always buy for me. Coutts's expression became complicated. He's asking for magic books. Not because he really needs them, but to not disappoint my expectations. Coutts took one last look at the children and turned to leave. I'm leaving. Coutts's hand landed gently on Rachel's head, stroking his black hair. Vivian and Rachel stood on the stairs, watching Coutts's departing figure, staring for a long time. This is the first time in a long while. I feel like I must come back here. I have to come back, no matter what. The main gate slowly closed with a heavy sound. Vivian turned and took Rachel's hand. Let's go too. The maids bowed. Vivian and Rachel walked up the stairs hand in hand. Their figures disappeared around the corner of the staircase. Margaret stood in place, watching with a cold, sinister gaze.